Into the Jason Gregor Show here on Sports 1440. Connor Halley, Declan Kruger, Donovan Paulson sitting in with you. Jason Gregor currently in transit on his way home from South Beach. Of course, covering the Edmonton Oilers loss to the Florida Panthers last night in Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals. He'll be back tomorrow. Might even get a hit with him later on today. But we got you covered here for the next 4 hours on the Jason Gregor Show, brought to you by PlayAlberta.ca. Make sure you head over there, have a little bit of fun. Of course, Euro, Copa, Major League Baseball. We got the CFL going on. Lots of fun to be had at playalberta.ca. Make sure to use your game sense when you get over there. The text line, 1-833-401-1440. Get those text messages in and often. We'll get to those throughout the show here. I want to get your thoughts on the Oilers' loss to the Panthers. I know for a lot of you, it's a tough day. A lot of emotions going through it right now with a tough loss, but keep those texts coming in. We'll get you through it. The sun rose today. Everything's going to continue on here. The Edmonton Oilers now turn their attention to the offseason, of course, where we've got the draft on Friday. We'll have free agency on Monday. The Edmonton Oilers will make some moves. It's going to be crazy because in a week or so, we're going to be running out of players. There's going to be guys moving on. There'll be new players coming in here. A whole lot of things are going to change. So it's going to be a lot of fun in the NHL landscape for us here in the next little while. Of course, we're coming to you live from the EWEL studios here at West Edmonton Mall. Get all your electrical needs at ewel.ca with 24/7 ordering and shipping in Edmonton and across Alberta. That is EWEL, EWEL.ca. Lots to get to on this show today. Of course, we're going to be focused very much on the Oilers and the NHL in general because it's going to be a pretty crazy couple of days here. Florida Panthers off celebrating, gallivanting out on the ocean with the Stanley Cup. For the Oilers, turning their attention to the draft and free agency, like we have said. We'll be joined by Shawn Brown, former NHLer, of course, co-host on the Jason Gregor Show every Friday from 3 till 5. We'll talk to Brownie about his thoughts on the game and then what happens now for an NHL player. What are you doing in the next little while here to try and get ready? Of course, the NHL season will have preseason games in late September. It's going to be back here in no time. Zach Lang from Oilers Nation, of course, will be by at 2:40. Talk a little bit about his thoughts on this series, what he saw from the team, what he thinks they need to do in the offseason, and some reports regarding the Oilers' injuries to two of their big players, McDavid and Draisaitl. Terry Ryan will join us live from Florida. Now, he was down there in Miami last night with the Chicklets crew having a good time. Talked to him earlier today. He was supposed to leave like 5 hours ago. His flight was delayed. Who knows when he's leaving? And he's got to travel all across the continent to try and get home. It's a crazy schedule, but TR will join us, I believe, from the beach at 3 o'clock. We'll have Dave McCarthy at 3:20, Kevin Karius at 3:40, Strudwick at 4:20, Spec at 5. We got 5 question mixed in there with Declan Kruger. We're supposed to have Derek Van Diest as well, but getting home from Florida, not easy. He's out in San Francisco, just about to take off. So DVD will have to postpone that one until tomorrow. Outside of the hockey world, just very quickly, there are some other things going on. Euro 2024 right now. France and Poland earlier today tied at 1 apiece. Austria knocked off Netherlands 3-2 to the best record in their group. And right now, Denmark, Serbia, England, Slovenia playing. Both those games currently scoreless. For the Canadian soccer fans tonight, Copa America, you got Canada taking on Peru down in Kansas City. That gets going actually in just about 2 hours. So we'll have that on in the studio now that we have the TV going. Can't wait for that one. Shout out to everybody watching on YouTube, Facebook. Make sure you hit that like button. We need all the likes we can get. Filthy. Hey, Connor, are you hosting or did Gregor not make it back in time? No, he's on the way. I think he was supposed to leave at 9 a.m. Eastern time. The flight got delayed until 11. So he'll be in the air and we'll see what happens. Gregor's globetrotting right now. We've got lots going on in the sports world, the NHL, obviously the draft in Vegas. So I think a lot of people probably want to, make their way to that one next. It's going to be a good time. I heard Tyler Yaremchuk of Oilers Nation. That was his plan. Was going to come home and then head to Vegas, but now is just going straight to Vegas. So shout out to everyone there. The text line already lighting up, but I want to get to Declan Kruger here first, sitting in a spot that I would usually hold down. Declan, you watched the game last night. I don't know if there was a point for you where this game seemed like it just wasn't going to go the Oilers' way. Of course, they were in it till the very end. I mean, Bouchard hit the post. There was that scramble in front where Hyman and McDavid couldn't bury it. But I don't know. Your thoughts on the game last night, a very open-ended question for you, and just how disappointing it has to be for the millions of Oilers fans around the world.
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit on the low tide. Me and Donovan made a point to talk about it in our pre-show meeting that both teams, I think, played with a degree of not wanting to lose more than wanting to win in spots. Now, there were times each team would press on the gas a little bit, and then I think they would kind of revert to a, more cautious approach. And I think we saw a lot of that. Obviously, if you want to talk about the whole result, Heartbreaking. I really I texted some friends about this. I even texted my mom about this. I really did not foresee a scenario after the Oilers rattled off 3 in a row where they lost game 7. And I said this to you yesterday. It's tough to win 4 times in a row against a good team. I totally get that. I totally realize that. But the way things were going and how Edmonton consistently looked like the better team, I really didn't see a scenario where they lost game 7. I know it was in Florida. I know Florida's a good team, this, that, and the other thing. I just didn't see it. So I have to give credit to Florida. They played very well defensively last night in game 7. I thought their stick work was incredible defensively. I thought Montour had like 3 plays with his stick that I just couldn't believe. He made the plays, that one stretch pass across the slot. Played well. They played well as a whole. If you're Skinner, maybe you want Reinhardt's back, but you got to score more than 1 goal if you're the Edmonton Oilers. It's heartbreaking. There are no guarantees that the Oilers will be back. I'm fully of the opinion Connor McDavid will win a Stanley Cup alongside Leon Draisaitl for the Edmonton Oilers. But just to really wrap it all up, the initial thoughts are heartbreak, sadness, and there was this feeling of inevitability that did not come to pass, and that's eaten away at me a little bit today so far.
Yeah, I mean, I had thought about it talking to people saying if the Oilers can get a couple on Bobrovsky early, like who knows? Maybe that's just the key to it. You don't want him to find that confidence, and his guys were laying out in front of him, blocking all that they could. And you got to give them credit. Text come in here from Connor. 3rd straight summer the Oil have lost to the Stanley Cup champions. Has that ever happened before? It's crazy if you think about it. Awesome year and a wild ride. The players have nothing to hang their heads about. Much love. Have a great summer. Connor. I thought he might have been saying that to me, but it's also another Connor. There might be a few more Connors coming around after the last so fun couple of months we had in town here and what that guy was able to do. Spinner, Edmonton North says, guys, as a hockey fan, there are no losers in a Game 7 Stanley Cup final. The Oilers' playoff run was great for the city and great for the Oilers fans. Go Hawks, go. Spinner North Edmonton. Eden, father of Arias, texting in 1-833-401-1440. Do you believe the Oilers would have won if Kane and Nuge played? Ooh, a little shot at Nuge there. Maybe. I don't. It's hard to say. Like Evander Kane, we saw him out in that series. He just didn't have it. If he's 100% healthy, yeah, maybe he's the edge they need. Maybe he chips in with a goal in one of the prior games, or maybe in Game 7. But it's kind of a slippery slope, I find, when you talk about ifs. Well, what if the Vancouver Canucks like to play that game, that their fan base? If we had our starting goalie, you didn't. You have to live in the reality. Who knows what would have happened if everyone's healthy? I think we're all going to start to hear about McDavid and Draisaitl's injuries coming out here. We'll talk to Zach Lang of Oilers Nation about that later on in this show. He had the report going out there, but yeah, it's tough. It's tough, especially when you lose in that fashion by 1 goal in Game 7. You're always going to say, what if this had happened instead? Rick texts in, Oilers had to have a lead after 1. That was my belief the whole time. The Panthers are unreal after 2, and when they had that lead, I basically knew it was over. Panthers were something like 69-0-4 when leading after 2. Just an unreal lockdown team in the final period. Proud of the team. Rick, thank you for the text. Jordan says, I thought I'd wake up angry or sad, but instead I woke up proud and grateful. Watch the modern day equivalent of Gretzky alongside my son. So many lifetime memories, ultimately for a fan. Isn't that what it's all about? Heck yeah. I mean, you'd love to take a win here and there for sure. I totally get the fans that are upset with the team not being able to get the win. And we had some people earlier on in Fantasy Frenzy talking about how McDavid and Draisaitl unable to put up the points was kind of frustrating. And hey, without McDavid's heroics in games 4 and 5, we don't even get to Game 6, right? So it's tough. I get the frustration, but at the end of the day, I mean, it's how many people are going to be remembering the good times they had watching with their friends, their family. Yesterday on Fantasy Frenzy, we talked about people's favorite memories from this run, and a lot of people talked about how they got to see their kids fall in love with the game and become Oilers fans. So that's kind of a cool side effect, but we always wish they could have got the win. James texting in, it's funny, the sun came up this morning and downtown isn't a burning wasteland. Odd, eh? Edmonton is still the city of champions. Yeah, I thought the people that were making out crazy things, thinking when we'd be rioting and stuff, wasn't quite buying into that one. Thought I heard there was 5 arrests and 4 were like drunk and disorderly or something. So there's always going to be people that have too good of a time. We've all been there. Text from KM. Being heartbroken many times in my life, but this loss might be the worst. To get that close only to fall short hurts bad. This team's too skilled not to win a cup, but this is the last learning lesson. No more excuses going forward. Yeah, I mean, the pain is going to linger, and it's probably going to linger for a long time. We had Fernando Pisani on, who was it, Wednesday, 2 weeks ago, I want to say, and he said it's still hard to watch the Stanley Cup being handed out. He can't do it. He leaves the room because it lingers. You're never going to forget how close you were. So it's tough. Only thing to cure that is victory. Harry says, we do not riot. We do not riot. Colombo says, Evander Kane, huge mistake, leaving out a one-shot goal scorer, in my opinion. Yeah, he just wasn't getting around. Like the injury that he had, he talked about it, sports hernia at the start of the playoffs. It didn't heal. And he was having a hard time. The mobility just didn't seem like it was there. I'm sure he wanted to be out there. And you're right. A shot like his, a guy who was a perennial 20-goal scorer, certainly would have been a nice addition, but just maybe he couldn't get out there. Boys, it's the 8th Cup final. Everyone keeps saying it's 7. 83, 84, 85, 86. Sorry, 83, 84, 85, 87, 88, 90, 26, 2006, 2024, Blair. Oh, I trust your math, Blair. A few more texts to get to here. John of St. Albert. Connor, do you think Gary Bettman rigged Game 7 so Canada/Edmonton can't win the Cup? John of St. Albert. John, no, I don't think that. I do like conspiracy theories, not going to lie to you, but that one personally is one I wouldn't buy into. How did he stop the Oilers from scoring? How did he stop Evan Bouchard from, hitting had him hit the post? It's
big magnet.
I kind of like that one. You're like, that's like, because I know you're a big fan, Declan, of the cold envelope for the Patrick Ewing draft in the NBA, right?
The frozen envelope.
The frozen envelope.
Oh, yeah, 1985. Well, that's like, come on, that's like rarefied fact at this point, I think. I think everybody knows David Stern was rigging it in favor of the Knicks. Maybe Bettman took a page out of his old playbook. I don't know.
Hey, it's a magnetic
Commissioners got to stick together.
They do. They got to get that paper for the owners, make everyone happy. Oilers fans probably would have bought so much memorabilia if they won. But no, John, I'm not buying into that one personally. Sean says, if you think about it, the Oilers have lost to the Stanley Cup champions the last 3 years in a row. They couldn't be any closer now. It was quite the roller coaster of a season. Hope next year is their year. Yeah, you go back to November, the start of the season, 2-9-1, firing your head coach. Things were not looking very good. Heck of a run to get back into it. It was a roller coaster for sure, just not the ending we wanted. Hockey is about winning, not being in second place or trying your best. I know we all say stuff to make each other feel better, but only thing that matters is winning the Stanley Cup. And I hope we can do it next year because our window is running out. The real question is, did Jason introduce himself to Stephen A. Smith as the Stephen A. of Alberta? I don't know if Gregor wants to be in that category. We'll have to ask him. It'd be cool to meet Stephen A. though. Guy's a grinder. Guys, 97 with 37 on his wing. 2 4-point games. KK puts 93 on 97's wing, no points. With all those high-scoring wins, Nuge was -5. He needs to play on the third line as a winger and a special teams specialist. 100-point player last year. But yeah, I mean, hey, if the production's not the way there, move him around. I guess I can get that. Sean says the series wasn't lost last night. They need to get a win in the first 3 games. If they do, they win the Cup in 6. Yeah, you could make a very easy argument that the Oilers, at the minimum, were the better team in 4 games. The 3 they won in Game 1. Bobrovsky was fantastic defensively; they did a very good job. But that's not what it's all about. It's not the winometer or whatever it was, right? It's how it's played on the ice. Jonathan Albert, Connor, have you seen all the videos of the chaos downtown before the game? Lots of people pulled to the ground. An ice district pushed over. It was chaos before it even started. Yeah, that was people trying to get into the ice district early, I believe. I try not to follow that Instagram account too much. Confession, I do dabble occasionally, but I try not to watch too much of that one. Zito has done a good job. Props to him. That comes in from Harry. Yeah, I would totally agree with you. Like, Zito built a really good team. And, there were some situations he kind of lucked into, getting some players for cheaper. The Tarasenko was fantastic. The climate of Florida, playing for a good team and that no state tax, I think that gets guys a little more inclined to go play for the Panthers. Obviously, being a very good team helps too, but they built a really good team, taking some cast-offs from other organizations, drafting some of their own, developing. Zito built a very good team, and Paul Maurice did a great job coaching. Loved his post-game speeches after as well. Alfred says, I walked out with a minute before the end of the game, couldn't bear to see McDavid sad. Yeah, he was sad after that one. It was tough. Tough to see those guys. And even my wife's like, do they just keep showing the losing team? Yes, they do. Every sport. I find it the worst in World Juniors and maybe like March Madness because a lot of them are still kids. But yeah, it's tough to see that sort of thing. Superman asking about if we thought Gary Bettman rigged game one of Florida versus Edmonton. No, I don't. Like I say, we want to talk about conspiracies. Probably not going to be great sports radio, but I love them. This is just one I personally don't buy into. You know, the game happened so fast. If you want to bring up Fogel's penalty, I think that was just the refs seeing something and they think they made the right call. They're going with it because we disagree. Nothing we can do about it. But I don't buy into the conspiracy. Filthy from Calgary says team was in the basement, came back, went on a record-tying heater, then went on a run to the Cup final, going all the way to Game 7. I think we need to be happy and realize how good the team was. Popular Farmer. You laugh about the rigging, but if you do love conspiracy theories, read the Colin Campbell to Stephen Walkham leaked emails. Poplar Farmer. Send those to me. Send those to me if you have them. I can Google them as well. I know how to do that, but if you do have them, I would definitely take a look at those. Andrew says, magical run, but at the end of the day, we fell short, and that's the only thing that will be remembered. Just like in 06, Panthers, big guns outplayed ours in a do or die Game 7. That hurts. Yeah, you're right, Andrew. Game on the line. It was a one game for all the marbles. The Panthers were the better team. Jason of Leduc. Easy math. They've lost 3 Cup Finals and won 5. 8. Has there been some sort of debate on how many appearances they've had?
There shouldn't be. It's pretty easy to check.
I didn't know this was a thing. Maybe someone had said 7. It wasn't me because I don't think I brought that up once at all. But maybe it has been discussed on the station. Dean says, I'm a massive Oilers fan. However, I can always tell when they get beat because in the first, they're the first or getting beat to the puck in each and every time. Yeah, Florida seemed to want it a little bit more. The somber faces around town tell the whole story. 18 years to get back here, and damn. Yeah, I'm looking around in the mall right now. Not as much Oilers gear. I think I saw one hat today. So we're putting them away for a couple months. Darren says, wasn't that Yegwave post from 2021 or 2022 just trying to create hate and clicks? You might be onto something, Darren. Like I said, I just looked very quickly. I try not to give it too much time. There's not too much positivity on that site, but you do get the news quick from it. So, yeah, take it all with a grain of salt, and we'll see. I don't know. Maybe someone else knows if that post was from a couple of years ago. We'll take a break here. We're running long already. Today on the show, as I mentioned, Shawn Brown, former NHLer, will join us. Coming up next, we got Zach Lang, Terry Ryan, Dave McCarthy, Kevin Karius, Struddy, and Mark Spector. It is the Jason Gregor Show. Connor Halley, Declan Kruger, Donovan Paulson with you here at the eWell studio, brought to you by PlayAlberta.ca. 24. It's not Fantasy Frenzy. It's the Jason Gregor Show here on Sports 1440. Brought to you by PlayAlberta.ca. Connor Halley, Declan Kruger, Donovan Paulson with you here. Gregor will be back tomorrow. Just kind of gallivanting the globe, heading down to Florida, checking out the scene, watching the Oilers, and potentially heading to Vegas next. We will see where Gregor's heading to next, but he will be on the show tomorrow. We'll get you through it here. The Gregor Show brought to you by PlayAlberta.ca. Right now, we're going to get to Shawn Brown, former NHLer, co-host of the Jason Gregor Show from 3 to 5 on Fridays afternoon. It is our playoff report brought to you by Action Electrical. They are the most diversified electrical contractor in Alberta with 4 divisions in project, service, tag, and solar for commercial or residential. Contact them today at actionelectrical.net. Shawn Brown joins us, former NHLer. Brownie, how you doing today?
Doing good. Yeah, what a game yesterday. It's a little quiet out there right now compared to yesterday for sure.
It really is. Yeah, I was saying before we got you on here, just walking around the mall, I think I saw one hat. So that compared to like 1,000 jerseys yesterday. So it is a little bit different here in oil country right now. But Brown, I just want to ask you, because we've had a few people saying they could tell early in that game that it just wasn't going the Oilers' way. Did you have that feeling at any point last night?
I don't think so. I mean, Florida definitely, I was interested in tuning in because the start of any game, is important. And Florida you got to give them credit. They did a great job. They played to their true identity to their team. They made it tough. They got in on the forecheck and kept pucks alive, and they were hard, but that's why you work hard to put yourself in a situation to play Game 7 at home, and I think they took advantage of that early. But you got to give credit to the Oilers too, is that like they bent, they didn't break, they weathered the storm, and there's lots to be proud about for the Oilers, for us as a city, as fans. That was an amazing game to watch.
Yeah, it was. And we saw that from the people that had no horse in the race commenting on social media, talking about just how good of a game it was. Both sides wanted it. The Panthers, the better team on that occasion. And now the Oilers maybe turn their attention to next year. I just want to bring this one up quickly, Brownie, because Darren Drager tweeted it out there. Thank you to Donovan Paulson for letting me know. He says this in a tweet: I believe there's a role for Ken Holland moving forward in Edmonton if he wants it. His situation will be clarified within a few days. As of right now, indications are that he will not be at the draft in Vegas. Your thoughts on that?
Wow. You know what? These guys, there's so many media outlets and everyone's got an opinion. Playing hockey is hard, and playing hockey in a Canadian market with the media and the way it's covered is even harder. There's not a lot of wiggle room for error, and but you got to give Ken Holland a lot of credit. I mean, they were knocking on the door, and it could have easily went the other way. And this was a team that he put together. This was a team that he made tweaks and brought guys in and has his fingerprints all over it. And it does he deserve a second chance? You know what? I would have to think that the way he handled himself and the experience that he brought to the Oilers, I would have to think he would deserve another shot. I don't think they're that far off. I mean, it could have easily swung the other way. It's considering where and when they made some of the moves that they did, especially the coaching moves. I mean, if anyone can think back to the media presser there, I mean, that was awkward as could be, right? That was a tough time, and they turned the team around, and he had something to do with it. So I'd be a little bit disappointed, because I feel like, and I think he would be disappointed too, because I feel like he'd want to see it through because he's right there. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see where it kind of goes from here.
Shawn Brown, former NHLer, joining us here on the Jason Gregor Show. Connor Halley, Declan Kruger with you here, sitting in for Gregor on this Tuesday afternoon. I want to ask you, as a former NHLer, when the season ends, obviously, probably a little bit tougher for the members of this Oilers team, and a bunch of them probably going to need to go into surgery. But what is the next step taken? Is it a week away from the game, 2 weeks away to rest? Are you vacationing? What do you think the next couple of weeks here looks like for a lot of these Oilers players?
Well, I think it'll be interesting to see with, this long run. It obviously takes a toll on every player. We all know that they were playing through something. So I always find it interesting, to kind of hear what guys we're playing with. And it's always quite amazing what guys are willing to do and are able to do for the Stanley Cup. So that's going to be interesting. And obviously it's going to take time to heal those wounds, and you gotta, these guys push themselves. You're working all year long. There's no time off anymore. So it's going to take some time for these guys to take care of their bodies, and probably the biggest thing is also get away from the game mentally, right? I mean, I've never been in that long of a run, but I could only imagine mentally how draining and exhausting that would be. So I think it would be important that they, get away. And I think most guys, have a trip, whether it's getting away to Europe or something. And, these guys are all probably dating or have kids and are married. So getting away from the whole game itself, I think, is important. But I don't think, when I look back, when I first came into the league, and it's obviously changed a ton. I found that it was important, especially as I, got more mature and understood what it took to play and be a pro, that you really never get yourself out of shape. There's nothing worse starting basically at zero again. It's always easier to work out during the season and maintain. Obviously you wouldn't have the same, type of workout. But, I find that you work so hard in the gains that you get. If you just, if you don't maintain that, it's always that much harder to get back. Right. And to get further ahead. So I bet you these guys, they probably take 2-3 weeks just because it's such a short break here. And, they'll probably start to, slowly get their bodies, back into it. It'd be probably gradual. Depending on the type of injuries that they have. But I think a lot of it now, would be just the mental side of just, resetting, getting away, decompressing. And then, emotionally, it's got to be hard to be, having a chance to play Game 7 and win the Stanley Cup. And, you're going to be thinking about this for a while. This isn't something I don't think you can just let go right away. They're going to have to, it's going to be a tough summer thinking about that.
Oh, absolutely. I couldn't imagine. I mean, we had Fernando Pisani on the show a couple weeks ago, and he talked about how tough it is still to see the Stanley Cup being handed out. And you got to think some of those things never really just go away. You're always going to remember them. And there's a constant reminder.
I think even like Fernando or, all of us are former players now, but I mean, I love watching. I mean, that was just a beautiful game to watch. I had every part of the game you could imagine. I love the detail and the structure and the accountability and each shift and throughout the whole game. But I really love watching the end and watching the guys celebrate and, hoisting the Stanley Cup and passing it on to their teammates, and just the pure emotion and joy, because, we always tune into Hockey Night in Canada and we get to see that part of it, but, we don't get we don't see the grind throughout their career, and the adversity that these guys face, and, put their bodies through mentally, physically, and then, to realize your dream. I mean, it just gives me goosebumps even thinking about it. And then you bring out the families, the wives, the kids. It is really special to watch. I always find that, I make sure that I watch it right to the end.
I'm with you. I had a hard time turning it off. Even though the Oilers didn't win, it was cool to see the guys celebrate all they've worked through to get there. And then, like you said, bring the families out. It was cool. I was really happy for Paul Maurice. I thought he had some great words after as well. And they got a great picture of him hoisting the cup with the Panthers, all standing around him.
Yeah, and that's the thing, too, is like, Paul Maurice seems like an amazing guy and a guy or a coach that we would all love to play for and would probably all go through the wall. And I put Ken Holland in that category when we talked about, does he deserve another chance? I mean, I always think, would he be a guy that I'd want to play for? And Ken Holland and Paul Maurice, those are all guys I would love to go to bat for. And, just because, he's a good guy and what we see through the media, you got to think too, like Paul Maurice, had a lot of uncomfortable conversations with his players, throughout the season about expectations and accountability and job descriptions, and to see the amount of respect that they had for him, knowing that, that's what they all had to go through at different times through the season. I mean, it's just amazing. It's not anyone that's won or a part of a team, can really relate to that type of emotion.
Shawn Brown joining us here on the Jason Gregor Show. Connor Halley sitting in. John of St. Albert texting in says, Connor McDavid is being criticized for not coming out to accept his trophy that he won, the Conn Smythe. He shouldn't get all the hate. I agree with John here. I mean, if this was in Edmonton, maybe you come out and you acknowledge the fans, but you lost the game. You won the trophy. I mean, you want to be with your guys in the room. You don't want to interrupt their celebration for the trophy. Did you have any issue with Connor McDavid staying in the room and not coming out for the Conn Smythe?
Yeah, that was tough. I mean, of course we want to see McDavid. He's the face of the NHL, and he didn't get the ultimate team prize. He was obviously well deserving of that trophy. But I also think the NHL too was, you got to think for Connor. I mean, he just lost a hockey game. He's got bonds and friendships and emotion. There's a ton of emotion going on. I think if they wanted him to come out and it was that important, I felt like the time between when they announced it and when the game was over kind of puts an athlete in a tough spot. Like, where do you want him to be? Right. I mean, I'm sure there's lots of different conversations, amongst the players. The coach has, his breakdown and what he wants to say, and then obviously, I imagine these guys were very, very emotional, and it just seemed like there was so much time in between. He could have been in his underwear at that point, right? I think that, if maybe the NHL wanted him to come out and it was that important, maybe they do that award a little bit quicker, but that's kind of only my thought, is that, we don't know what's going on in that dressing room in that moment, and the conversations and how they're all interacting amongst themselves. I think you got to try, as an NHL, get him while he's on the ice, quickly get him there. Obviously, he's not going to want to spend a whole lot of time, and then he's going to want to get off with his buddies.
Brownie, before we let you go here, we got a couple of texts coming in here about Darnell Nurse, and some people want to trade him. Salary, no trade clause, those sort of things, obviously a factor. Some people have mentioned maybe try to move Cody Ceci. Then you got the topic of Vinny Desharnais. How would you handle the Oilers' blue line heading into 2024, 2025, knowing you've got a guy like Philip Broberg who looks like he's ready to take that next step?
Well, he did take that next step. I mean, he was amazing. It's just incredible what he did under those circumstances. Is just, I don't think we can ever realize, coming into that situation and the way he handled it was just, man, did he ever take multiple steps in his development? And, Desharnais obviously has taken a ton of steps, and, you know what, Darnell Nurse, hey, his contract is his contract. I think like I said, they're a couple goals away, and they had those opportunities to, it could have been a different story. They could have been Stanley Cup champions, and Darnell Nurse would have been a part of that and was a big part of their team. I think, we all know that he has a dimension that not a lot of guys have, and sometimes, is there a little bit of inconsistency in maybe the way that, we'd like to see him play more, but, for them to make another run, they're going to have, that hard-nosed, hard guy to play against. And I think there's a fit for Darnell Nurse, with the Edmonton Oilers. And I think, when, these players and Darnell reflect, on maybe some things that, because, hey, nobody's like, you're always reflecting and you're always trying to grow year after year. And there's growth in everybody's game, throughout that lineup, that maybe just that little bit more that they could do. So I don't have a problem with Darnell Nurse being a part of it, because number one, I think with his contract, it is what it is. Maybe there's an upgrade with CC. It'll be interesting to see with Desharnais where his price point and where he slots into it. But, there's going to be, and I think you guys have talked about it, there's going to be some free agents and opportunities for the Oilers to kind of strengthen their team. And for the fact that Broberg stepped in and played the way he did, now allows the Oilers and their management to kind of, it could change a few things. And, and it's not like the Oilers don't have, they got a lot of players that a lot of other teams would like to have. Right. So I think they're in a really good position.
Totally agree with you, Brownie. It's going to be a really interesting offseason. We got the draft Friday, free agency Monday. We'll see what the Edmonton Oilers do and the Ken Holland situation, how that plays out. Thanks a lot for hopping on today. We will talk to you on Friday.
Okay, have a great one, guys.
There you go. That is Shawn Brown, former NHLer, joining us for the playoff report, brought to you by Action Electrical. Check them out, actionelectrical.net. When we come back, we'll be joined by Zach Lang of Oilers Nation. Talk a little bit more about the Oil. He had the report out there, I believe, on Oilers Nation every day today about the health of McDavid and Draisaitl, so we'll ask him about that and a whole lot more. It is the Jason Gregor Show here on Sports 1440, brought to you by PlayAlberta.ca. On Sports 1440, Connor Halley, Declan Kruger, Donovan Paulson with you here, live from the EWEL studios, brought to you by PlayAlberta.ca. Also, live on the Oilers Nation YouTube and Facebook streams, Twitter, Instagram. We're all over the place. Big thank you to everyone tuning in. If you are watching on Twitter or Facebook, make sure you hit that like, the thumbs up button. I see True. I see Joe Opinionated. Lots of people in here having a good time, enjoying it. We appreciate you tuning in today. Of course, still to come on the show, Terry Ryan, Dave McCarthy, Struddy, Spec, lots to get to. But right now, we're going to get to the Oil Report, brought to you by Volvo Cars Edmonton. You can save $6,000 of all new and demo 2024 XC60 Recharge plug-in hybrid models at Canada's #1 Volvo dealership, Volvo Cars Edmonton.com. We bring in Zach Lang from Oilers Nation. Zach, good afternoon. Tough day under the circumstances, I'm sure, for the fine folks at Oilers Nation HQ, but how are you doing?
Well, you know what, Connor, trying to do the best that it can do. You know, it was obviously a disappointing end to the season last night for the Edmonton Oilers, but I think there's a lot of exciting things to be happy about with this team. I mean, I think the fact that they were even able to push it to 7 games in this series, I think is a huge milestone in and of itself. So lots of silver linings if you're a person who likes to look for those.
For those of you watching on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Zach, you look like Maxo Relaxo in the Oilers Nation studio. So I commend you for that one. We got to make some changes in our building to get a little bit more comfortable like that. A couch would be great. But yeah, a tough day for the Oilers fans, being so close and just not quite getting there. Certainly a tough one. Now, you had it out there. I think I saw it on some Oilers Nation graphics, some injuries for McDavid and Draisaitl that might be leaking out here. Yeah,
that's right, Connor. Couple of injuries for a couple of the key guys. Connor McDavid's been playing a couple of rounds with an abdominal injury that is likely going to require surgery this offseason. Leon Draisaitl, I'm told, had been playing with a broken rib since game 1 of the series against the Vancouver Canucks. In that game early on, he took that hit from Tyler Myers that kind of had him shaken up, and then people weren't really sure what was going on, but it sounds like he broke a rib there, and then he's been playing through a broken finger as well. I know there were some photos we saw shared on social media of him with his fingers kind of wrapped up at multiple points throughout the postseason run. So, the big guys were pretty banged up, and I think, especially for a guy like Connor McDavid, the fact that he was able to do the things that he did do in these playoffs, despite that, was pretty significant. And when it comes to Draisaitl, he's certainly not a guy who's going to use this injury and the injuries that he's been dealing with as an excuse or anything like that, because he's somebody who takes a lot of pride in his play and in his work. But it also kind of explains why, he could never seem to find that next level in the finals against Florida here.
Yeah, certainly would explain a lot of things. And those always trickle out at the end of the playoffs. Whenever the team gets eliminated, you start to hear and you get that appreciation once again for how tough these guys are. So we'll keep up to date on that and see how the recovery goes through the offseason. Another thing that came out was Darren Dreger of TSN saying that Ken Holland likely has a position if he wants it, but isn't going to be with the team in Vegas for the draft. Your thoughts on that? And then also just the Edmonton Oilers going into the draft, that second round pick. Is it just kind of a best player available situation for you?
Yeah, a couple of interesting things with Ken Holland, right? I mean, I don't know if anybody is really expecting him to remain as a general manager moving forward. Just personally, I wonder if it's kind of going to be like a senior advisor role. We see that with a lot of these older general managers and older guys in the game once they kind of get to the age that Holland's at, stepping into those senior advisor roles. I could see something like that for Holland, sticking around with the team and not being in the day-to-day activities as general manager the way that he's been. When it comes to the draft, Connor, I got to tell you, I have no idea. I have spent zero time paying attention to anything draft related. But I do know that over the next number of days at OilersNation.com, we'll have a number of our writers taking a look at some options available for the Edmonton Oilers. I do think kind of going best player available might be the way to go for them. Be curious to see some of the guys that are available in that range and what the Edmonton Oilers decide to do. They, of course, got a number of late draft picks. It's interesting. They have no first, third, or fifth round pick, but they still have 6 draft picks in this class. So they got the second rounder and then a couple in the 6th and 7th rounds. And hey, the Oilers have managed to strike gold with these late round picks in the past. So it'll be curious to see if they can do so again here this upcoming weekend.
Zach Lang of Oilers Nation joining us here on the Jason Gregor Show. Connor Halley, Declan Kruger with you here, sitting in for Jason as he makes his way back from southern Florida, South Beach. Zach, How about trades? Anything you could see happening here for the Edmonton Oilers? We had some people suggest maybe you try to move on from Cody Ceci as he enters his last year. Use some of that cap space to re-sign Vincent Desharnais. But any trade moves you think we could see happen?
I think the Oilers are going to be busy this offseason. How much they do in terms of trades will be curious to see. The buyout window will open up tomorrow for the Oilers and every team in the NHL. I think Jack Campbell is the obvious guy there, but there's also been some reports that the Oilers might be trying to trade him and find a trade partner. I think there's probably like 4 or 5 guys that you could say the Oilers might trade or might want to trade, largely because of cap purposes. You got Jack Campbell as the most obvious one, Evander Kane up front as well. Then on the blue line, there's 3 guys, Brett Kulak and Cody Ceci. I could see one of those guys being moved. I would think it's probably Cody Ceci, the one the others would prefer to move, keeping Kulak on that left side for now. And then, of course, there's been a lot of rumors that have kind of come about with Darnell Nurse and his future with the franchise. Frank Saravalli from dailyfaceoff.com has reported that, the Oilers could look to move him this summer, but, this is a guy who's making $9.25 million. He's got 6 years left, and he's got a full no movement clause. So if Darnell Nurse doesn't want to go anywhere, he's not going anywhere. And that's as simple as that. So I don't really think Nurse will move this summer. I think it's maybe too complicated of a deal. But hey, you know what? Pierre-Luc Dubois just got traded a couple of, last week. And I don't think anybody was really expecting the Kings to be able to come out with a relatively good deal, all things considering, in that situation.
Zach, how about just going into free agency? There are some names that have been brought up. I think I'll try to say this realistically. Obviously, they're not going to be big game hunting, with the current situation. But any players you think we should be watching out for that could be realistic options for the Oilers to look to bring in?
Well, I think there's a number of guys that the Oilers are going to look to re-sign from their free agent class this year. I think they've got something like 10 unrestricted free agents from the NHL roster heading into this offseason that are unrestricted. I think they'll probably try and bring back a couple of those guys. When it comes to free agent class, it's really going to depend on how the Oilers can move money out, because as it stands right now, they've only got like $10 million in cap space. So there's going to be some interesting and likely difficult decisions that have to be made. One name that's been connected to the Oilers already is Victor Arvidsson. That's a guy that I would have a ton of time for, a ton of interest in. I wonder if you could get him for a year or two around, maybe that $3.5-4 million mark. This is a guy who's put up points in the past. He's battled the injury bug, but he's a very tenacious player who can kind of play multiple different roles. He can score points, he can score goals, but he can also play that physical, greasy side. And Oilers fans have had a lot of looks at Victor Arvidsson over the last number of years in the playoffs. So that would be a name that I'd be really curious to see. And, I'm sure that there'll be some more that come out of the woodwork, but I don't really think, and I'm not expecting the Oilers to kind of be big game hunting for any of the top free agents in this year's class.
Cannot wait to see exactly what happens here for the Edmonton Oilers. And it's going to be very interesting. What do you think happens with Jack Campbell? I know some people have thrown him out there as a potential buyout. Could you bring him back next year and hope that he continues to ascend the way he had since going down to Bakersfield?
I guess anything's possible. I have a hard time seeing a path for him coming back to the organization. When the Oilers made the goaltending change in the Vancouver series for games 4 and 5, Jack Campbell's name wasn't even in the realm of possibilities as somebody that could step into the lineup. It was Calvin Pickard or nobody else. So, I think that there kind of highlights some of it. I don't know. I just have a really hard time seeing a path back to the NHL for Jack Campbell with the Oilers, especially at the cap hit. You look at what he did early in the season in the NHL, and his numbers were even worse than they were last year when they were already really, really bad. And it's a great story for Campbell to kind of have the resurgence that he did at the American League level and post the numbers and kind of go on the run that he did with the Condors. I just don't think that the future for him is here in Edmonton. So, whether they look to buy him out or they look to trade him, I think those are both possibilities. Maybe there's a situation where the Oilers want to use a buyout on somebody else. Maybe just to throw a name out there. Maybe it's Evander Kane the Oilers look to buy out if they can't find a trade partner for him. I'm not saying that I think Evander Kane, necessarily should be traded or anything like that. But I think realistically, when you look at the cap situation for the Edmonton Oilers, I think Evander Kane is a guy that could go. And the only name really from the forward group that are currently retained under contract that would be an option to be traded. So it'll be curious to see what happens. I mean, the Oilers are going to need to find some money somewhere. So I think those are the two most logical guys that could be moved out, either in, a buyout or a trade.
We got a text coming in here from Chewy, and he brings up, this is not Oilers related particularly, but still is in a sense, Stuart Skinner, and the possibility of him representing Canada at the international level, the Four Nations Cup, and then, even further beyond that. I answered this yesterday on Fantasy Frenzy. I mean, when you go back, Aiden Hill got his team to the Stanley Cup, won. Stuart Skinner got his team to Game 7 of the Stanley Cup final. You got Binnington as well. When you look at the pecking order for Canadian goaltenders, how high up would you have Stuart Skinner?
I think he's probably pretty close to the top. Like, I would think he's one of the three goalies that'll represent Canada, at the Four Nations and at the Olympics. Whether he gets into the game action, I mean, that'll be remain to be seen. But I think a guy in Skinner, 25 years old, he's taken a huge step forward in his game this year. I felt, obviously he was shaky in game 2 against LA. He had the 3 really tough games to open up the series for the Vancouver Canucks, where the Oilers in front of him really didn't do him a ton of favors either. But at the end of the day, like, ever since he came back for Game 6 against Vancouver, he was absolutely dialed in. Like, I thought he was excellent in Game 6 and 7 against Vancouver, but he was really good against Dallas as well, and against Florida too. Like, even early on in those games that the Oilers lost, those first 3 games of the series, I don't really think any of them were Stuart Skinner's fault. I mean, I think he was doing the best that he can with the breakdowns in front of him. And I think he was a big reason why the Oilers were able to kind of turn this thing around as well. I mean, he's a guy who is still 25 years old. And I think that's something that a lot of people tend to forget. Skinner, he seems like he's so wise, above his years is kind of how the saying would go. Right. But yeah, I do think that there would be a spot for Skinner on those international teams moving forward.
Well, that's the next thing we'll turn our attention to once the NHL season takes a little bit of a lull after the draft and free agency. Zach, thanks so much for doing this today.
Hey, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
There you go. Zach Lang of Oilers Nation. That's the Oil Report, brought to you by Volvo Cars Edmonton. Check them out at volvocarsedmonton.com. It is the Jason Gregor Show here on Sports 1440, brought to you by PlayAlberta.ca. Connor Halley, Declan Kruger, Donovan Paulson with you here. Keeping these texts coming in here. 1-833-401-1440. Steve says, sorry if I missed anything, but is Knobloch coming back? Yes, he signed a 3-year contract, so he will be returning. It'd be quite the move to move on from him after 1 year and getting into Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals. So he will be returning, and I know Declan replied to this one, but someone had texted in, does the NHL needs to bring in restructuring like the NFL does? Declan, you nailed it on the text line. The NHLPA wouldn't allow it. There's no way. The NHL contracts, they're guaranteed. They're not negotiable. It does help teams out in the NFL for sure, but I don't think the PA ever wants that to happen. I mean, there's a reason the NFL players are trying to get more and more guaranteed money, because they just want to eliminate the uncertainty. They want to sign that deal and get paid. Just not going to happen. No name on this one. Pass the name in here. All these excuses about injuries is funny to me. Every team plays hurt. No excuses. Kulak had a complete defensive meltdown and Skinner couldn't stop a shot from the top of the circle with no screen. That's why we lost, not injuries. If they're so hurt, don't play. Well, send your name in. We'll get you in the system. I do agree. I mean, the injuries are fact, but it also is a fact that Kulak probably could have stepped up on his man there, and Stuart Skinner probably could have made the save. They didn't. Players are hurt. All these are facts. It's a part of it, but hey, we're going to find out about the Florida Panthers and the injuries that they have as well. So it's not just one side of things. It's always going to be multiple both sides. But yeah, that is a thing. No text here, just a reply about the restructuring. Would love to see Nurse's contract restructured. Yeah, and I think you're not alone, unnamed texter. Get that name in here so we can add you to the system. A couple more texts here very quickly. Scott says the NHL has a saying, you have to lose before you can win. NHL will be modified next year, but it will be a Canadian team that wins. Toronto or Vancouver. All right, jot that one down. And yeah, just a lot more text coming in here. Funny one just about the Tkachuk comments post-game. Doing it for the Flames.
The faith, okay?
It's like, man, you laugh. But Fat Efron just saying, I saw this online. This is towards the comments Tkachuk made. A Flames fan cheering for Tkachuk Panthers is like going to your ex wedding and bringing the most expensive gift. I thought the same thing. And, for him to say, I couldn't let us lose, Kachuk was almost invisible for all but one game. But it was a good chirp, and I'm sure the Flames fans out there absolutely loved it. We'll take a break. When we come back, more of your text and more interviews to get to on the show. Dave McCarthy will join us at 3:20. But first, we're going to get to a Sports 1440 update brought to you by Hockey Heroes Society, the charity golf tournament featuring NHL alumni in support of the Hockey Heroes Society and the Whitecourt Boys and Girls Club Gala Dinner Friday, September 6th, and golf on the 7th. You can learn more at hockeyheroesgame.com. Here is Declan Kruger.
And for your Sports 1440 update, we start with the Euros. 4 games on today. It was France and Poland, tied 1-1 in group action. Poland moving to 0-1-2. France moving to 1-2-0 with that result. The Austria over the Netherlands 3-2, courtesy of a 79th-minute goal. Denmark and Serbia drawing at 0, and England and Slovenia the same score. Copa America later today. We'll see Chile and Argentina in action at 7 p.m. and Canada in action versus Peru at 4 p.m. That game going out of Children's Mercy Park in Kansas City. MLB scores, MLB action around the league later today. Gets going with the Guardians and Orioles at 4:30. Phillies and Tigers, Mariners and Rays, Yankees and Mets, Pirates and Reds all in action. And it's the Toronto Blue Jays against the Boston Red Sox. First pitch will be just after 5. That one's scheduled for 5:10, and it will be Kevin Gausman on the mound in that one. Former NHL stars Pavel Datsyuk, Jeremy Roenick, and Shea Weber were part of the 7-person 2024 Hockey Hall of Fame class announced today. Rounding out the class was Natalie Darwin and Chrissy Wendell-Pohl, while Colin Campbell and David Poyle were selected in the Builders category. News around the NHL is the Colorado Avalanche have signed forward Casey Middlestat to a 3-year, $17.25 million contract extension. The Jets also making moves as they signed defenseman Dylan DeMello to a 4-year, $19.6 million contract extension. News out of the NBA as Knicks forward OG Anunoby has opted out of his contract and will be a free agent coming up. Hour 2 of the Jason Gregor Show is on the way. We'll be joined by co-host Terry Ryan, Dave McCarthy, and Kevin Karius. I'm Declan Kruger, and this is the Sports 1440 Update.
Oh, I forgot about Just after 3 o'clock, thank you for tuning in to the Jason Gregor Show here on Sports 1440. Connor Halley, Declan Kruger, Donovan Paulson with you here from the EOL studio. The Jason Gregor Show brought to you by PlayAlberta.ca. You can use promo code SUMMER and get a $50 casino play with a minimum $5 deposit. Also, tonight, the $23 million Lotto Max. So you have got your ticket, PlayAlberta.ca. That is also promo code SUMMER for the free $50 casino play. A lot still to get to on the show. 1-833-401-1440. Later on, we'll touch on Copa America, Canada soccer team taking on Peru. We got some Major League Baseball, Riverhawks in action tonight, Dino Night down at the park. So lots going on here in town. But we got to talk a little bit more hockey. And to do that, we'll bring in our usual co-host on Tuesdays and Thursdays, former NHLer, the star of Shoresy, Terry Ryan joins us. TR, how are you doing today?
Well, to be honest with you, I'm hurting today, but it was worth it. It was a great time. And, for a lot of reasons, I'm sitting here. My flight's delayed till 8 o'clock, and it's not so bad. I'm on the beach in Fort Lauderdale.
Could be worse. Could be worse. How was the evening? Give us a little rundown of what you got up to last night.
God, it was overwhelming. It was just, it wasn't just the evening, it was the day. So, I came down. A lot of my friends were on the charter from Edmonton.
Mm-hmm.
So, and my buddy Taran Sam with ex-Oiler. It's always good to see Taran, but we planned to come down and meet up. And then the Chicklets guys were here. And I ran into people just out on the beach that were Shoresy fans. So we'd all, and I don't know if Fort Lauderdale, it's like, I don't know much of it other than this strip that I'm on right now where the Elbow Room is, which I'm sure you've seen some videos today. But we just all ended up there. And to be quite honest, it was, it felt just like a celebration of hockey. It's hard for me to articulate it. It wasn't just Oilers or Panthers. It was just, it was great. I think maybe because the extreme, you're playing hockey. It's Florida. It's June. It doesn't really feel like hockey weather or culture. But when you get to the rink and you realize, even though it's 30 years old, it's still catching on. And hockey's not the natural fit down here. But, man, it was a great vibe. And the fans seemed to be just absolutely pumped that their team was in the final. This was all before they won. And even I know they booed McDavid, but really, the feeling I had when I was in there was one of joy and celebration more than anything.
What was your takeaway from the game being played on the ice? We've had some people that thought, maybe the Oilers hit a wall after winning 3 straight. The Panthers obviously ramped up their game. What was your takeaway from Game 7?
Yeah, it was weird to see because it was the first playoff game I've seen this year live, but I've watched them all.
Mm-hmm.
So it was actually, we were out all day with the Chicklets guys and we'd had some drinks and I said, we're going to the Stanley Cup Finals. So when we got there, I was aware of that. And I was very when I went up, I said, okay, to my buddy Johnny Duh, I said, let's go up and sit and let's just take this in. We'll meet the boys after. Let's just take this in. Now, different live than on TV. So to me, it did. It looked, again, I'm trying to find a word, anticlimactic maybe. They were just didn't have that oomph. There was some, again, it's the only one I saw live this playoff, but it just seemed maybe that, I don't want to say the word tired, but that's probably something, fatigued as you would be mentally and physically. And like I said, it's hard for me to sit here and knock the Edmonton Oilers after all the unbelievable season that they've had. And just to be on your guys' show and to be connected to it a little bit, I ran into a lot of the media guys down here. And I'm more proud of the Oilers than anything. I really, really am proud. So, yeah, I thought they could have maybe packed a little bit more punch, but they're out there. You got to understand how many guys are injured. There's injuries that are going to be reported, that are being reported, but any hockey player out there knows that you're usually playing hurt during the season at some point. When the Stanley Cup playoffs happen, there's just a lot of injuries and bruises, and it's late June, and all that mental and physical fatigue have been happening all year, including with like a 2-9 or 3-9 start, whatever it was. So I just think there was a lot to unpack, and it's not like they went 4 straight every round. There's a lot of games played, right? Like in the playoffs. So I don't know. I can't say I identify. I've never been in the NHL playoffs, but of course I've played pro hockey playoffs. I know how the grind can be. And as we follow it, I just thought I was proud to be an Oiler fan, put it that way.
Terry Ryan joining us here on the Jason Gregor Show, former NHLer, star of Shoresy Newfoundland Sports Hall of Fame. So, Terry, I want to ask you, when a team gets this close, in your opinion, is it a few personnel moves that have to be made to get you over the top, or is it experiences? Because we do hear a lot that, especially in the Stanley Cup playoffs, the final, sometimes you do have to lose before you win.
Yeah, well, I mean, I believe I read in Wayne Gretzky's book about, how they were walking out. The Oilers first lost, I believe, to the Islanders, and the Islanders had won the Stanley Cup, but they were all sitting there with ice bags, and they almost looked absolutely beat, absolutely dead. And I forget the analogy Gretzky uses, but he says, that really motivated us, and it showed us what it took. And I think maybe there's some of that. Really, personnel changes. I mean, I don't know. I guess there have to be because of contracts and stuff, but they were a goal. Like, this is a bounce. Not only that, coming back to even force that 7th game, I thought that showed so much character. And it's not easy to win the Cup. Hockey is not an easy game to go out and dominate. And sometimes you might want to, and you might have a great team. There's 32 teams, and Florida are a fantastic hockey team. So, I don't know. For me, if I'm the Oilers, or even as a fan, I breathe a little bit. I wait a week or two. Well, I guess they don't have that luxury, but I'd lean towards experience versus making too many changes with personnel. I think all the changes that they made in the past year or two have led them up to this. So I think they got a good squad. I think they got good people, good leaders, and they were just a goal away.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you on that one, Terry. Before we let you go here, the Hockey Hall of Fame inductee class for 2024 was announced. Pavel Datsyuk, Jeremy Roenick, Shea Weber, Natalie Darwitz, and Christy Wendell-Pohl as players, Colin Campbell and David Poyle as builders. When you look at those players, any memories, stories that come to mind?
Wow. So I didn't realize that was announced yet.
Yeah, Datsyuk, Roenick, Shea Weber from the NHL players.
Wow. Okay. Cool. Well, Roenick, of those players, Roenick was definitely I don't know if I want to use the word idol, but closest thing to it. I really looked up to him. I loved the way he played. I remember there's a couple of major instances where he came back from injury. I believe he broke his jaw one time and came back and scored the winner. I was always motivated by that guy, and if you look at his statistics, I thought it was incredible that he's been retired this long and he wasn't already in there. I understand there's a process, but I mean, a lot of it's just subjective stuff. I mean, in my mind, Jeremy Roenick would have been all three, but I just think at his peak, he epitomized what it meant for me to be a hockey player. And I was a young kid coming up. So it was great to watch a guy like that play with so much spunk. You don't have to fight to play tough. And speaking of all three, but you go to the hard areas and you pay the price. And in my mind, Jeremy Roenick is a terrific leader. And now that I actually know him personally, it means even more.
Yeah, very well deserved for all the inductees. Cool to see. Love that ceremony at TR. So when's your flight? It's 5 o'clock Eastern time. You got 3 more hours?
My flight is at 8 o'clock now. Yeah.
Are you going? Where do you head to?
I'm here with my buddy Jordan Escott. Jordan played for the Newfoundland Growlers this year. Real good buddy of mine. Part of the reason I played that game for sure is that he vouched for me. But Jordy's a great guy, great friend. and our flights were delayed all day. We were going to Chicago, Montreal, Halifax, St. John's, and it all got fooled up when our plane here was delayed. And I need to be back there because my daughter is playing the Soccer Atlantics that start tomorrow, and I'd be devastated, and so showed she if I didn't get back. I promised her when I came down here. Excuse the fire truck. I promised her when I came down here I'd be back for that. So Jordy, we were at the airport this morning, and he just said, "Screw this," and I hooked him up with the ticket to the game.
Mm-hmm.
And he just said, "Lou," and he bought us first class tickets all the way back. Gotta love Jordan Escott, one of my best buddies.
Beauty. Well, safe travels home. Good luck to your daughter at the tournament, and we'll talk to you on Thursday.
Sounds good. We'll see you then. Thanks, Connor, and congrats to Oil Nation. I was real proud to be even a slight part of it last night at the game, and it continues to be a good vibe here in Florida. Thanks again.
Awesome. There you go. Terry Ryan, former NHLer, star of Shoresy. Man, the milk run to get home would be tough, especially when you missed that first flight. So flying home first class, that is absolutely awesome. The text line 1-833-401-1440. Lots coming in here. Bruce in the park just tuning in. Any Oiler injury updates? We had Zach laying on from Oilers Nation. He had reports that McDavid had was it an oblique injury? Draisaitl might have been a broken rib and finger. Those are just reports. We can't say for sure. But that's all we have right now. Anything else pops up, we will let you know. But I don't think the Oilers want to lean on those as excuses or anything. But we will report them as what comes out here. And hopefully, maybe get some confirmation if they're factual or not. We do know there had to be something. But everyone is going through something when you make it to the Stanley Cup final. That's just the nature of the beast. Take a break here. Get the text coming in, though. 1-833-401-1440. It is the Jason Gregor Show here on Sports 1440. Still to come. We will be joined by Dave McCarthy, Kevin Karius. We got Jason Strudwick, former NHLer, and Mark Spector. 5 questions and more. It's the Gregor Show, brought to you by PlayAlberta.ca.
Hey, sports fans, we've got a clear choice for you. At Crystal Glass, we provide
Or welcome back to the Jason Gregor Show here on Sports 1440. Connor Halley, Declan Kruger, Jonathan Paulson sitting in. Gregor on his way back from Florida. He'll be back in the host chair tomorrow. The text line, 1-833-401-1440. Get your thoughts in. Oilers, maybe Copa America. We got Canada getting going in about 35 minutes time, give or take. Show, as always, brought to you by PlayAlberta.ca. Tonight is a $23 million Lotto Max. Get your ticket at PlayAlberta.ca right now. We'll go around the NHL. Brought to you by McDonald's for only $2 plus tax all summer long. Make it a Sunday fun day topped with either hot fudge or caramel sauce. Get your Sunday today at McDonald's. We bring in Dave McCarthy, host on Sirius XM NHL. Dave, good afternoon. How are you doing today?
Good, Connor. What's going on, buddy? It's just you by yourself? Terry kicking around? What's going on here?
Yeah, so Terry got stranded in Florida. He was supposed to be on his way home. His flight got canceled, and he was doing the milk run, so he wouldn't have made it anyways, I don't think. And then, Gregor's same sort of thing heading back. So I got Declan here with me. I got Donovan Paulson running our digital side. So we, hey, B team, but we're doing our best through this,
Get out of here. Get out of here. Show's never sounded better.
I appreciate it. I meant myself. I didn't mean Donovan or Declan. For the record, great view for you out there in the back. Okay, so the game last night obviously didn't go the way the Edmonton Oilers would have hoped. Maybe not their best performance, but do we have to give a little more credit to the Florida Panthers in shutting down the Oilers' top stars here?
Yeah, I think the Panthers absolutely deserve credit. The way they looked to me in Game 7 was the way they looked by and large in the first 3 games of this series. That was Panthers hockey to a T. Right, the 3 games, game 4, 5, and 6. The best way I could describe it is it seemed like the Oilers were playing regular season games. In other words, that was the way they wanted to play if they're at their best. They were carrying the puck through the neutral zone with speed. They were getting inside. It looked like there was a lot of room on the ice, which is the antithesis of what Florida Panthers hockey is all about. You saw it in the first round against Tampa. You saw the second round against Boston, third round against the New York Rangers. When the Panthers are at their best, they suffocate their opponent and they frustrate you. And as a fan of the opponent, you watch the game and you're like, holy cow, it feels like we're not getting any chances here. And that's what I saw again in Game 7. I was doing the post-game show on NHL Network Radio last night, and I went into the game, because I always jot notes down, Connor, but I went into the game with my bar very low when it comes to should I jot it down or not. In other words, if I was ever a doubt in my mind, jot it down. I didn't jot very much down because not a lot happened. And I think that favors the Panthers when the game goes that way. They had a few chances. Obviously, with 7 minutes left, McDavid in front. I still don't know how the heck that didn't go in. Hyman couldn't shovel it in. But beyond that, there wasn't a lot that stood out to me. And when the game goes that way, it favors the Cats. So, yeah, they do deserve a lot of credit. They deserve to win the way they played.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, there's the Bouchard post as well, which was close. But other than that, yeah, you're right. It wasn't too many grade A opportunities for the Oilers, and the Panthers did what they had to do to get the job done, shutting it down, very similar to Game 1.
Here's what I thought really killed them, though. That power play relatively early in the second, when the only power play that they had. And then I forget, the defenseman broke a stick. Stanley gave him a stick, and they had a good minute and change in the offensive zone with the Cats essentially down a guy and a half. And yet they still seemed to struggle to get the puck to the net. That was their chance when the game was 1-1 to go up in the game, and they couldn't take advantage. I thought that was a huge turning point in the game.
Yeah. Sticks all over the ice. It was kind of mayhem. I do recall that. A little bit of frustration, I think, from Oilers fans at that point. So, Dave, if we're turning our attention now to the offseason for the Edmonton Oilers, we saw the Darren Drager report that Ken Holland, if he wants it, can have a role with the team next year, but won't be with the team at the draft in Vegas. They don't pick until the second round, and then a handful later on. But if you're the Edmonton Oilers, you're running the show here. What's the plan here? What do you have to do? Is there any moves you'd be making? Any players you're looking to try to bring in? Obviously, cap space becomes an issue. What's the plan for the Oilers heading into the offseason?
Well, I think plan number one, whoever it is who has their hands on the wheel, I guess that's Jeff Jackson for the time being, according to Dregs' report. If Kenny Holland's not going to be at the draft and whatever the future may be there, call number one is to Leon Draisaitl and his representation. Say, what are we doing here, bud? We're going to have a press conference on July 2nd or what? That's the elephant in the room, right? That they got to get dealt with. But he's got a year left. So, even if the answer is, we'll play the year out, we'll see where we're at. I'm still weighing my options. I would generally suggest that should be an indicator, well, you got to move on the guy. Not in this case, though, because I think you'll have a motivated player who obviously is in a position to win. And this is a team that, like, we talk in Toronto all the time about being, quote, right there. If there is Europe, the Leafs were getting on the plane in Toronto. That's right there for them. The Oilers were right there. So I think you keep this. I think you keep this team together as much as you can. Try to augment the blue line a little bit. The fact that Evander Kane was unavailable was unfortunate. Florida was by and large a little bit healthier than Edmonton. But I think this is a group that can continue to contend and get back to where they were. So, job one is to figure out where you're at with Leon Draisaitl, and then two, just tinker around the edges. But I wouldn't move on Draisaitl this offseason if he says I'm not ready to make a decision yet, because I still think you want to come back. You don't want to undercut yourself from a chance again next year to take a kick at it, which I think they do if they come back with a similar group.
Totally agree with you. We had that topic pop up in November, I think, when things were not going good and it became a realistic discussion. I was like, no, ride it out, run it back, do what you have to do. But I would not move on from Leon Draisaitl. Dave McCarthy, Sirius XM NHL, joining us here on the Jason Gregor Show. Connor Halley, Duncan Kruger with you. Looking at the Hall of Fame class here, just announced here, we got Shea Weber, Jeremy Roenick, Pavel Datsyuk, amongst others. When you look at those three, any memories, stories come to mind for the guys heading into the Hall?
Oh, well, I guess when it comes to Jeremy Roenick, I remember him punting the Leafs in, I guess it would have been 2004, with that goal in overtime soon after Darcy Tucker absolutely decked Sammy Kapanen along the sideboards. JR hauls Kapanen into the bench, jumps on the ice, and thanks for coming. Leafs didn't make the playoffs for like 9 years. So that's my enduring memory of Jeremy Roenick. Shea Weber, a very good defenseman, guy that obviously was a big part of the national teams in I guess 10 and 14. Just a really solid player. Obviously helped lead the Preds to a cup final in 16, the Habs to a cup final in, that would have been 20, I guess, in the bubble.
Yeah,
it came up just short of winning a Stanley Cup, but a guy that was a great leader, consistent, physical, somewhat intimidating. Got it done at the junior level, world junior level, world championships, Olympics, and well-liked guy as well. Probably a guy that's probably going to get the call to the Hall at some point, and he got it right away. And Pavel Datsyuk, just a guy that, he was not a flashy player, but when you have a deeper appreciation for the game, or you talk to somebody who can see the game better than guys like you and I, you really learn about what he was able to do that made winning so much more attainable for those Detroit teams. His play away from the puck, his ability to defend, his ability to shut other teams' best players down, obviously his ability to produce offensively. It's not something that necessarily stood out to the naked eye, but it was something that made a huge impact on the Detroit Red Wings teams. He won Stanley Cups, so without question, he was going into the Hall of Fame. I'm just still shocked that Alexander McGillney is not in the Hall of Fame. I really cannot believe that this cat is not in the Hall yet, because not only was his play on the ice Hall of Fame caliber, Connor, he was the only player that led the Leafs in scoring for a good stretch when the only other guy who always led the team in scoring was Matt Sundin. McGillney was the one guy that dethroned Mats in that run. But it was what he endured to come over that essentially paved the way for guys from the Soviet Union to come over to the National Hockey League. Obviously you're not going to put him in the builders category, but you can't deny that his career had an element of a builder component to it, in the fact that he blazed the trail for guys from that part of the world coming over. So I'm just shocked. I still don't quite understand why he's not in. Like, to me, Shea Weber, really good player, first ballot. I don't know. Maybe not. Like, I wouldn't have been egregiously offended if he had to wait a year or two. I thought this would have been a perfect opportunity to get Alex McGillney into the Hall, who's had to wait too long, in my opinion.
It's funny because, no joke, I have his DB page opened. I was going to ask you about that next. 473 goals, over 1,000 points in under 1,000 games. I mean, when? If not now, when does it happen?
Right.
Because it's almost becoming the annual tradition of me asking the guys in 5 questions, what's the biggest snub? Alexander McGillney. It's happened like for the last 2 to 3 years. So it's tough to see. Hopefully we see something happen soon. Dave, we got the draft coming up in free agency. What's your schedule looking like the next couple of days here?
Just to finish the thing on Alex McGillney, I just want to see the guy give a Hall of Fame speech. Very underrated sense of humor and very dry wit. Very dry wit. So if he was ever to give a Hall of Fame speech, I think he would knock it out of the park. So yeah, we'll see what happens. The next week or so, doing a little bit more radio. We'll grind it out till free agency, and then things slow down a little bit. So keep our eye on the Mitch Marner situation here in Toronto. If something happens on that front, I haven't really heard anything of note, but that can change in a phone call. And then, you know what, we're not far away from I guess in our world, the official start of summer, Connor, and won't be long now until the season gets going again, because we're like 10 days later into June than we normally are. The cup gets passed out.
Yeah, training camps getting going in like 2 months. Summer's going to fly by. We'll enjoy it while we can. Dave, thanks for doing this today.
All right. Thanks for having me, Connor.
There you go. Dave McCarthy, Sirius XM NHL host, and that is Around the NHL, brought to you by McDonald's. And we're talking summer. Hey, Sundays, $2, fudge or caramel. Get them now at McDonald's. 1-833-401-1440. Kevlar texting in. How do you feel about the refs putting away their whistles in Game 7? I mean, I guess they didn't want to have their hands all over this one. It is what it is. I feel like maybe I say that too much in life. But the Oilers only getting 1 power play. Probably could have been a couple more. But the refs decided they didn't want to call them. They wanted maybe assault before it actually was something they wanted to make a decision on. What can you do? It's passed. As someone who leans towards the Oilers, I would have loved to see them get a few more calls. Would have loved to see that power play get out there and try to do a little bit more damage, but wasn't the case. Phil sends us the checklist here. Oh, it's a good one. 1, buy out Campbell. 2, look for a trade partner for Ceci and Kane's contracts. Draft picks back if possible. Leon is going to the Kings after next season. Dubois is off their books now. He's already has a house in LA. Let's just enjoy next season's run with him. I keep hearing people say, would he take a haircut on the next deal to stay? That is laughable. The guy played out his current contract with no gripe when he was clearly underpaid by millions for the last few years. No way he takes a haircut on his next deal. Re-sign Janmark Brown Carrick. Try to make a deal to keep Henrique. Not a hill to die on, but would love to keep him. There you go. That's the offseason plan from Phil. Let us know. You got a plan? You think what you'd like to do for the Oilers? You can let us know similar to that one. Theo Fleury deserves to be in the Hall of Fame before McGillney. Fleury had the numbers, medaled, and a ring. Mike, the Michigan fan. Yeah. Kevlar just fires back. The count will be happy with another one of his desert expansion teams winning. They're not in the desert, but I get what you're saying. Non-traditional hockey market for sure. Florida, man. State of hockey. They just keep on winning or getting to the Cup final. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll be joined by the host of the Kevin Karius Show, Kevin Karius. That's coming up next here on the Jason Gregor Show. Connor Halley, Declan Kruger, Donovan Paulson with you here live in the Stingray Studios, brought to you by PlayAlberta.ca.
Join NHL
Jason Gregor Show. It's 3:44 here in the city. Connor Halley, Declan Kruger, Donovan Paulson with you. Gregor will be back tomorrow. The show, as always, brought to you by PlayAlberta.ca. 1-833-401-1440. That is the text line. We had the last text in come in here saying, you let it run out, play it out with Leon Draisaitl. He's heading to LA. Another text coming in here. Well, a lot of people just saying, we don't see that one happening. Soft roll. Leon's not leaving the Oilers. Just like fishing. You don't leave fish just to go to find other fish, just like you don't leave a team to win a championship to look for a team for a championship. Mike, different name on this one, but hey, we'll roll with it. Top guy, I hope Draisaitl stays, but I see Tampa Bay making a serious push for him, as to the last texter. Doesn't believe that Fleury should be near the Hall of Fame. Of course, yes. A bit of a snub. If you look at the statistics and the wins. Alexander McGillney, another one people bringing up. Even Curtis Joseph. We have some people texting in saying, why isn't he a Hall of Famer? We can talk about that and more with our next guest. It's Kevin Karius. He is the host of the Kevin Karius Show, which you can hear from 7 to 11 a.m. Monday through Friday right here on Sports 1440. Kevin, good afternoon. How you doing?
Doing great, Connor. I see the inmates are running the asylum today. How's Donnie P doing?
Let me look through there. He looks like he's doing good. He's locked in. He's laughing. So he's having a good time. Ducklin's crushing it as well. Just trying to get through the day before we hand things back over to Gregor tomorrow. But we'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah, for sure.
Kevin, we got on the topic of Leon Draisaitl. Obviously, soon going to be eligible to re-sign, redo his deal if he wants, or maybe he looks to go elsewhere. What do you think the future holds for Leon Draisaitl and the city of Edmonton?
Well, the one thing that's for sure on that, Connor, is that this is all on Leon. The ball is in his court. He gets to decide, as early as Monday, and he can let the Oilers know of his intentions and what he wants. And if he wants a 4-year deal at $13.5, $14 million, then the Oilers, that's what they do. They sign him. If he wants a long-term contract and goes the max 8 years, then they can sign him too. But the definite thing here is that the ball's in the Oilers' court. The other thing that is 100% certain in my mind, that there's no way that they're letting Leon play out his contract this year, moving forward and not getting anything in return for him if he so chooses to do that and go that route. You can't let an asset go for nothing at this point of his career and this point of the Oilers, what their model is for their organization.
What do you think that would look like? Let's say worst case scenario, Leon's holding out or whatever it might be, doesn't want to negotiate. Is that a deal that's made at the start of the season? Are you waiting until the trade deadline? How do you think that would play out?
You never wait that long. I can't see it ever being that long because his intentions are known. If he doesn't want to be here, he's going to say that. He's going to say, I want to go somewhere else. And at that point, that's when you start to decide what is the best route and the best timing to make a trade or facilitate that. To me, and I heard what you're saying off the top about the fishing thing. Where's there a better scenario for Leon to go? Mm-hmm. I understand the California angle. I understand, even in Tampa Bay, how do they make that work? This would be a very, very, you're talking about a monumental trade. If you're going to deal Leon before anything can happen, whether it happens instead of him signing. So I don't know. I would be surprised if something didn't happen here in the next little bit. But for Leon, for him, maybe it's smarter to sign a shorter term, a la Austin Matthews, for that number and a bit more, whatever it is, to go the 4 years. And at that point, the cap's going to go up even further. So, instead of being locked in at whatever, if it's 7-8 years at $14 million, maybe he goes 4 years at 14, and then he can do another 3-4 years. By that time, it might be 16, 17, 18, who knows?
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you. I wouldn't be surprised at all if that might be the route that they want to take from his side. Darren Drager tweeted out there. He said, I believe there's a role for Ken Holland moving forward in Edmonton if he wants it. His situation will be clarified within a few days. As of right now, no indications that he will be at the draft. That he will not be at the draft in Vegas. What do you think the situation is for Ken Holland? Did you think he's back in an advisor role next season or, in any role at all?
Yeah, something like that. That's what I would think. And there was a thing about the availabilities for the Oilers this week and what's going to happen as far as management coaches towards the end of the week. And I would and there, you could read between the lines saying there will be some clarity by then. So I think we're going to find out here in the next couple of days what is going to happen with Kenny. To be honest, I would be very, very surprised to see him return as anything more than in an advisory role. But, when you're just on the end of losing in Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final by 1 goal, sometimes you're not thinking totally clear. And sometimes maybe you can look at some other options. And maybe there are other options that Ken wants to explore with this team. And maybe there aren't because he's 68, 69 years old, and he's done it all. He's in the Hockey Hall of Fame. He's won Stanley Cups, but champions are champions. They want to see things through. Ken's a champion. He wants to see what he started, his plan through here. You look how close he was, and maybe that tilts something towards coming back in some sort of a capacity.
Kevin Karius joining us here on the Jason Gregor Show. Connor Halley sitting in for today. Gregor will be back tomorrow. So if you're Jeff Jackson heading towards the draft and free agency here, Kev, what is the plan? Like if you had a priority list here, the task list, what's the focus on for you?
Well, I mean, the draft to me, unless you're making some sort of a major deal with pieces of your puzzle at the draft, and sometimes there might be some sort of a trade and sign with a team because you might be able to get maybe a draft pick or something like that. We've seen that happen. We've seen that happen many times before where you might get a late round draft pick and you move forward and you get something like that. But to me, honestly, it's the Leon. You have to figure out where, and they have to know right now. There's been talks. I mean, even though you're in the Stanley Cup playoffs and this has been, going on for 2 months, I would imagine that there have been discussions, very informal, about Leon and his future. To me, that's the number one top of the list. And I mean, then you go down it. I mean, I think Mattias Janmark is a player everyone would like to see back if it fits in contract-wise. The same with Connor Brown. And we all know what he's going to get next year for his bonus money. So maybe there's a fit there. And I've said this a number of times on my show where Connor Brown and he just had a child, him and his wife. They get, the wives are getting along with, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins' wife and Cody Cece's wife. Everyone has kids kind of around the same age. Does it make sense for you to go up and uproot everything and go to a situation where you might not have another chance to get to a Stanley Cup final or a Stanley Cup championship like they had here? But those would be my top three. And then, I mean, after that, then the restricted free agents fall into play and you figure out what you're going to do with Dylan Holloway and Philip Broberg. So that's probably the order there.
Kevin, one more before we let you go here. Just looking between the pipes, obviously Stuart Skinner took steps this year, and it was a big fall off for Jack Campbell. Went down to the AHL and seemingly found his game, or closer to his game. Some people say buyout. If you're to do that, you have the cap hit of 1.1 this year, followed by 2.3, 2.6, and then 1.5 million until the year 2030. What would your maybe plan of attack be between the pipes going forward?
To me, that's probably one of the toughest ones because if you're doing the buyout, obviously you're looking at a window for next year with the core group here because you're going to have all these guys. The buyout of the 1.1 for next year makes sense to do the buyout, but then after that, now it isn't starting to increase. James Neal, I believe, comes off the book in dead cap space after next year, I believe. So that might come into play here. But I would think I would be leaning more towards a Jack Campbell buyout instead of not, but it has to make sense. You have to have, if you're doing that, you have to have all your other ducks in a row set to go, and that's going to trigger 1, 2, 3, 4 what you're going to do. So it's a difficult decision, and Jeff Jackson, I would imagine, has thought this through many, many times, and with his staff, and I'm sure Kenny Holland's been a big part of it. So it is a major decision for this team moving forward.
And lastly, Kevin, Canada or Peru at Copa America? Who do you got?
Well, I would go Canada. I think they, after what happened against Argentina, it was 2-0, and maybe they didn't have, optimal scoring chances. But, Peru's a team I think that Canada can beat. But I mean, they're going to have to play a very, very good game and a very good match. And you know, it would be great to see, you know, Alphonso Davies do well in this contest and see what happens. But yeah, I'm sure everyone's pulling for him tonight.
He's marching them out right now down in Kansas City. TSN 4, if anyone's looking to watch.
What's the temperature? Like, is it like crazy hot, isn't it?
Ooh, it looks pretty hot. I'm not sure for sure, though.
Someone was saying it's just as hot there as some of the games they played in, you know, the South American countries.
Really?
Yeah, I can't remember if that came over on a posting today on the Twixt this morning. I can't remember exactly because we were getting so many Oilers texts, but I'm pretty sure that came in early this morning, something about the temperature for this one.
I got 32 degrees with 56% humidity.
That's okay, isn't it? That's just like it is here right now.
Oh, that sounds beautiful.
Yeah.
Great game for a great day for some soccer. Small stadium, though, with all the stadiums they're playing at. This one looks a little tiny.
What's the capacity? I don't know. Arrowhead. I mean, no, they're not playing at Arrowhead, but there's got to be some bigger stadiums that they can go around in. No?
I was hoping Arrowhead.
Well,
it probably would have been like the lower bowl full because it looks like there's some empty seats here, but we'll see.
Be like watching a CFL game in Toronto.
Exactly. Kevin, thanks for doing this today. Well, tune in tomorrow, 7 a.m.
All right. Thanks, Connor. Keep Deck and most importantly, Donnie in line, okay?
I'm trying. I'm looking over there. He's got, you know what he's drinking, actually? A creamsicle soda. An orange creamsicle soda. No lie.
Yeah, right. That would be the day. Yeah, one of the top 5 desserts of all time.
I'm just waiting for him to bring out the ice cream, but he is doing it. So, Kev, I'm sure he'll let you know how it is.
All right, thanks, guys. See you, Connor.
So yeah, there you go, Kevin Karius of the Kevin Karius Show. That's not a joke, Donovan. Like you can probably yell over. Maybe Declan can confirm it for me. That is a orange creamsicle soda that Donovan's drinking.
I don't see anything.
Why are you doing this to me?
No, he's drinking it.
Are you hiding it now? For those who might have missed it, Donovan says orange floats, top 5 dessert of all time. It's wild. No one orders a float for dessert, do they? That's like a pre-meal snack for me. Pat Efron says, hey, Connor, how did you like the opening David Bowie Game 7 montage? I know the players don't see it, but after all the good songs and montages Sportsnet put together, they opened up Game 7 with a real weak one. The Phil Collins one was much better during the start of the second and the third. To be honest with you, Fat Efron, I was driving home. I missed it. I got home just in time for puck drop. We go right till 6. Usually Declan and I on game days are getting out of here at 5:57, and traffic isn't ideal, so I missed it. But I like Bowie. What song was it? Heroes? That would be my guess. Let me know. 1-833-401-1440. Keep those texts coming. We'll get to these as we roll on here. Still to come on the show, we got Struddy, we got Spec, we got 5 questions, and more of your text. It is the Jason Gregor Show here on Sports 1440, brought to you by PlayAlberta.ca. Right now, we are going to get to a Sports 1440 update with Declan Kruger, brought to you by Fountain Tire. Fountain Tire ensures that 100% of their vehicles owned have properly aligned wheels. Wheel alignments extend the life of your tire, which lowers the carbon footprint of your vehicle, reduces emissions, and lowers your fuel consumption. You can read more about Fountain Tire's ESG initiatives at fountaintire.com. Here is Declan Kruger.
This is a Sports 1440 update.
And for your Sports 1440 update, Euro scores from earlier today was France and Poland tying 1-1, Austria over the Netherlands 3-2, and Denmark and Serbia tying 0-0, as did England and Slovenia. Copa America action set to get going in just about 2 minutes here as Peru and Canada will meet out of Kansas City, and later today Chile and Argentina will match in the other Copa game on the schedule. MLB action getting going in just over half an hour here. It'll start with the Guardians and Orioles, Phillies and Tigers, Mariners and Rays, Yankees and Mets, Pirates and Reds all in action before the Blue Jays as they take on the Boston Red Sox in Boston. First pitch for that one set for 5:10, and it will be Kevin Gausman on the mound. News today out of the NHL as the Colorado Avalanche have signed forward Casey Middlestat to a 3-year, $17.25 million contract extension. The Winnipeg Jets also making moves as they have signed defenseman Dylan DeMello to a 4-year, $19.6 million contract extension. News out of the NBA as New York Knicks forward OG Anunoby has opted out of his contract and will become a free agent. And the Hockey Hall of Fame class of 2024 has been announced. Pavel Datsyuk, Jeremy Roenick, Shea Weber, Natalie Darwitz, Chrissy Wendell Pohl as players will be going into the hall, and Colin Campbell and David Poyle will be builders in the ceremony this November. Edmonton Riverhawks in action today back at home as they take on Bellingham. First pitch for that one just after 7 o'clock. In hour 3, we'll hear from former NHLer Jason Strudwick and ask another edition of 5 questions. I'm Declan Kruger, and this has been a Sports 1440 update.
1440 Stingray Radio Station. CHJR broadcasts from West Edmonton Mall and Wetaskiwin.
Download the free Stingray music app and listen wherever you go.
0% for 60 months. I'm not kidding. Where? Well, it's GMC Buick. And it's GMC's Adventure Calls event. Pick out a new 2024 Sierra with finance rates as low as 0% for up to 60 months. If you're a Costco member, you get another $1,200 off purchase price on any 2024 in-stock Sierra. We're talking half tons, 3/4 tons, even 1 tons. If you'd rather an SUV, we've got low lease payments and an awesome selection on GMC terrain. So get in today and get your adventure on. Wolf, GMC Buick. We're making it easy.
Silent Rides is one of Alberta's premier bus charter companies with state-of-the-art motor coaches. We provide our customers with the safest and most reliable ground transportation.
4 o'clock it is, the Jason Gregor Show here on Sports 1440, brought to you by PlayAlberta.ca. Tonight it is a $23 million Lotto Max draw. Get your tickets at PlayAlberta.ca. Also, you can use promo code SUMMER. I think it's all caps, SUMMER, and get a free $50 casino play with a minimum $5 deposit. Make sure to use your game sense. Connor Halley, Declan Kruger, Donovan Paulson coming to you live from the Ewell studio. Get all your electrical needs at ewell.ca with 24/7 shopping and shipping in Edmonton and across Alberta. EWEL.ca. Still to come on the show, 5 questions with Declan Kruger. We'll get to Spec and Jason Strudwick. Right now, though, we'll dive into the inbox here. Reagan, first-time texter. Are these texters clueless? Drives out of LA or Tampa? Quit drinking glue. KCF says, why would you want to sign Leon? No show in the finals. He's old. Move on. FFS from KCF. Different sides here. Propane Pimp says, totally disagree with Karius. If Dry wants to play out his deal, play out the deal. His $8.5 million in cap space is an asset you acquire. What move can you make at the deadline to give you a better chance at the Cup than to keep Leon? Yeah, I mean, the players that would have to come in would have to maybe fill the roles he can. Easier said than done. Matt says, I disagree with a 4-year deal for Leon. Matthew's 4-year deal is from the age of 27 to 31, while a 4-year deal for Leon would be 30 to 34. Leon will absolutely not get a raise on 13 or 14 million at age 34. Yeah, that's a good point. Age will play a factor. B says, yes, it was Heroes. That was the song from Bowie. Good song. I like to use it ever so often here on the show, actually. Good song. Sugar Sean, I think you keep Campbell, let him battle with Skinner for playing time, find a way to trade him during the season. Yeah, I mean, you hope it plays out that way, right? If there's a way that he can find his game, it'd be an absolutely huge addition for this team. You know, then you're not having to potentially bring in Kyle Pickard. Maybe you want to bring him back as an insurance policy anyways, but buyout could be one option. For those of you who maybe are just tuning in here, I'm Connor Halley, Declan Kruger, Donovan Paulson with you. Gregor's on vacation. We did touch on the buyout calculator for Jack Campbell. If that's the route they do want to go, next year, $1.1 million. The following year, 2.3. It peaks at 2.6 million in the 2026-2027 season. Then it would be $1.5 million for the next 3 years. If the Edmonton Oilers did want to try that route, we'll see what happens here. Stuart Skinner's contract, I think, is pretty friendly, so it gives you the ability to maybe keep him if you have to and let him try to work out of that issue that he has had. But we will see what happens going forward. Ty says, would you bring Olivier Rodrigue up in a backup role and let him play 25 to 30 games? Just keep Campbell down for another year or two to let his contract play out, since Rodrigue won't cost much. Yeah, he'd be on a very low deal, I suppose. I mean, we saw good things out of him. And I can't say this with absolute certainty. I didn't watch every single Condors game, but the numbers looked good. Maybe it's something they'd consider. I'm not exactly sure. You save $1 million by doing that for Jack Campbell. Every dollar helps, I guess, when you're going into these runs where you're right up against the cap and you're looking to add pieces at the trade deadline. So we'll see. Maybe we might have to get Ryan Holt on this show in a little while here. Let us know what's going on with Mr. Olivier Rodrigue. Please ask about Ray Whitney, Hall of Fame. Cup and over 1,000 points. Better numbers than the 2 Vancouver Twins. That's an interesting one. When was Ray Whitney an elite NHL player? That would be my question for you. Is it the Hall of Very Good, or do we want to have it at like the Hall of the Elites of the Elites? Certainly there is some clout there for having a very good career, especially one as long as his. 1,300 games, another 108 in the playoffs, 1,000-point player. I would say a very, very good NHL career. But if you look at it, I'm just going to scroll through here, so bear with me. How many All-Star appearances? 0. So he was never maybe one of the air quote better players in the league. And I think that
he also does not have more career points than Henrik.
Okay, there you go. So I don't know. I mean, I do think there's a special place for those guys. They're great careers. But if you were never really one of the best of the best, like the Magic Man, he was fantastic in the NHL. Pavel Datsyuk, Jeremy Roenick, heck of a player for a long time, one of the best, an all-star, and then Shea Weber. I mean, Norris caliber. These are like tops. I just don't know if I'd have Ray Whitney in there. Fantastic career, not taking anything away from it, but I don't think saying not a Hall of Fame talent is an insult, in my opinion. Al Nate says, didn't Sarah Volley report he wants a long-term deal and they're working on it already? I had heard that. That's kind of the scuttlebutt I've heard around people saying there was a number that was put out there that it might be, but also, it could be long-term. So we'll wait and see what happens here. I will say this, if you're Leon Draisaitl, and this is not groundbreaking stuff, but you want to win, you're in a pretty good spot. You're with a team that just went to the Stanley Cup final, and you were one game away, one goal, one lucky bounce away from at least being in overtime, right? Seems like you'd probably want to stay here. Obviously, maybe it takes a little time to decide on what the moves are going to be made by Jackson or Holland, whoever it is going to be around here making these decisions. But I think it's a pretty good spot. They'll be able to pay you. You'll have familiarity with a lot of your teammates. We know he's good friends with Connor McDavid and Darnell Nurse. So we'll wait and see. Would people want to live in California? Yeah, couldn't blame them. But I feel like if you want to win here, this might be a good spot to keep it going. Ben Dangle says, you think Leon wants to play in the Kings system? Heck no. I don't think he'd want to play in the old Kings system, but they have to change things up down in Los Angeles. The way they've been handled by the Oilers the last 3 years, 7 games, 6 games, 5 games, the last 3 seasons respectively, they got to change things up. Obviously, Tom McClellan was fired, but I don't know. I would wonder if they might change some things here. We had the one coming in here. Yes, Mike, we did read your text about the whole fishing thing. You don't leave fish to go find other fish. Like, you don't leave team in a position to win a championship to go look for another championship. Yeah, I think we're with you. I think we're all probably on the same page here about that one. Lance says, Chris Osgood is a guy I can't believe isn't in the Hall of Fame. Let's go back and kind of look through his career. 1 cups with Detroit. Now works in the media. Okay, so we like him. Part of the meat. 2 All-Stars. 5th in all-time playoff shutouts. 9th in playoff wins. 2-time winner of the Jennings Trophy. Member of the Stanley Cup champions. 3 teams, was the starter for 2. I'd listen to that one. 4th all-time in save percentage. I don't know if he'd get in. He wasn't a guy for me personally that struck fear. He played in a good generation of goaltenders though, right? Like, he would have been around there with Waugh, Hasek, Martin Brodeur, Cujo. Good little era of goaltenders for him. I don't know if he was ever at the top of the top, but can't argue the results. 2 Stanley Cups. Pretty dang impressive. Russ says, best fans in the and loudest building in the league has to account for something with Leon. Maybe. I don't know. I really don't know if the fan base really plays that much of a role for people. I mean, Panthers fans seemed fine. We know, like, when the team's winning and the barn sold out, the fans are going to be loud to a certain extent. I think winning and being competitive probably is the it factor, but anything could happen. Montana to Rice. Does anyone else think Weber is a borderline Hall of Fame player? Aren't Henrik and Daniel both MVPs, Art Ross winners? Yeah. Man, I remember when I first kind of got into this business, we had so many people at down the dial texting in, Shea Weber, got to get him on the Oilers, to the point where it didn't even make sense. It was just like, it doesn't matter what it takes. Go out there and get Shea Weber. There was maybe 4 or 5 defensemen at his level in the NHL. But people just said, you got to go get it done. Obviously, some injuries towards the end of his career. He's still just 38 years old. But when I think of him at his peak, I thought he was right up there at the tippity top of the NHL defensemen. Just want to scroll through here and get through some of his statistics here. Obviously, 2 teams that got to the Cup final. Points-wise, I mean, he was pretty much a lock for 45 or plus every year. World Junior, World Champion, Olympic Champion, World Champion. So he won at those levels. Memorial Cup Champion. 2 Olympic gold medals, 7-time All-Star, 4-time hardest shot. That doesn't really matter. 4-time member of the first or second teams. I mean, Mark Messier Leadership Award. I don't know, Declan. For me, he's an All-Star, or he's a Hall of Famer. Maybe first ballot. Maybe some people want to debate, but I've got him in the Hall of Fame all day.
Yeah, like first ballot's the tough one, right? I mean, like when you look at some of the guys he made it over, I think that's what raises eyebrows. Like, would you have taken him over McGillney? What was the peak of his career, would you say?
Shea Weber?
Yeah, like what would you say, like when he was at the peak, was he ever the best defenseman in the NHL? I know you love to use that argument in football. It's obviously a little different. I get that. But like I don't know if Shea Weber was ever the best defenseman. I don't like he has a nice resume, but there's a first ballot. I don't know. That one makes me scratch my head a little.
Yeah, I mean around 2009, I would say like he was peak. I'd have him very high up there. He wasn't.
He was a great player.
He was for a while there, kind of right in the conversation for the Norrises.
Yeah, but like no Norrises, no cups. Obviously, I mean he was never going to win any Hearts or anything like that. But no Norrises, no cups. Like hey, Connor, we love to throw this one around. We've talked about it a lot in the halls. It's not the Hall of Very Good. It's the Hall of Fame. Like you seem pretty set. I don't have a problem with it. I just may have a problem with how he got in and who he got in over.
Yeah. I mean, and that's fair. Like I said, if he would have had to wait a couple years to get in, would have been totally fine with it. But at the same time, yeah, I don't know. I'm okay with it being that way. I'm not up in arms against it. Sorry, text coming in here just regarding Ray Whitney, 2-time All-Star, yes. 75th all-time scorer from Potts. I'm still not swayed. He's still not a Hall of Famer for me. I'm sorry. Maybe I'm just being stubborn here. You can let me know. If you think Ray Whitney is a Hall of Famer, that's fine. Fill your boots. I don't know if he is for me personally. Very good player. Hell of a career. Great career. I just don't know if I have him there right now. Hacksaw says, con job. Never got that one before. The fact that Draisaitl is on the bench in Game 7 looking at these two jokers on his wings may be a reason to go somewhere else where he'll garner top and wingers. Hacksaw, counter argument there. When you're a player as good as Leon Draisaitl, you got to elevate the game around you or elevate the players around you. So we'll see. Cat Dad, sorry, he's not a Hall of Famer, but his slap shot is. Morris says Weber would have won 2 to 3 Norris trophies if not playing for the same time as Lidstrom. Yeah, Lidstrom was pretty good. Matt,
I hate that argument though. Like he didn't win. He did. Like I was. Thank you, Morris, for the text. Greatly appreciated. I was in the process of responding when you brought that one up. You know, it's if I had wheels, I'd be a bike, right? Like shoulda, coulda, woulda. If that, the other thing. It's just he didn't.
If I wasn't first, or if I wasn't second, I would have been first. Weber also 9-time top 10, and Norris finished second twice. So. Yeah, I mean, hey, that it's kind of like when you look back in history and we hear people say how good those Jets and Flames teams were, but they couldn't get past the Oil. You know, it's unfortunate, but hey, we're going to look back at history and say only one person can win, only one person can have those Norris trophies. Lidstrom, absolutely elite. What song was that you guys played coming back from the commercial break? Was it The Police?
It was So Lonely by The Police, yeah.
So Lonely by The Police. There you go. Attica, add that one to your playlist. Keith and Doughty were always better than Weber. Chara is better too. Yeah, but Keith just retired, as did Doughty. Chara, I think it's a lot of it's timing. You know, you got that little waiting period in between. A lot of it can be just opportunity, right? If that's the best player available, the voters thought, maybe that worked out for him. But I would agree. Like Keith, I'd have going in. Doughty probably too ahead. But Doughty's still playing. He's got some good hockey left in him. DC's fellas, I don't think Kane plays another game as an Oiler. He'll have to decide what teams he'd waive for, but I don't think there is a good vibe here in the locker room with him. Can't really comment on that one. Not in the room. Hard for me to say. Arnie says that Hall of Famer, Hall of Good. Weber, no. Totally fair. Like Don Cherry said, if my aunt had nuts, she'd be my uncle. Very common saying. And Montana DeRice just saying, for his generation, he was never the best. Yeah, that's it. That's fair. Opportunity, like I said, sometimes it's when you get a chance to go in. I was always a big fan of Shea Weber, so I'm okay with it. But if you weren't, that's totally okay too. Keep those texts coming in. 1-833-401-1440. We'll ask Jason Strudwick next. What does he think about Shea Weber getting into the Hall of Fame? It seems like JR and Pavel Datsyuk, nobody's too worried about, but the little one with some concern might be Mr. Weber. We'll talk to Struddy more about that. Also, the Oilers, his plans for the offseason, and everything else. Maybe we'll get his thoughts on Daniel Jones as well and the New York Giants. That's coming up next year on the Jason Gregor Show. Connor Halley, Declan Kruger, Donovan Paulson in for you. Coming to you live from the eWell studio, brought to you by PlayAlberta.ca.
Edmonton's premium
Welcome back to the Jason Gregor Show here on Sports 1440. Connor Halley, Declan Kruger, Donovan Paulson with you. Gregor heading back from Florida. He'll be back behind the mic tomorrow. Until then, though, you got the B team rolling with you. 1-833-401-1440. That is the text line. Show, as always, brought to you by playalberta.ca. Make sure you head over there tonight. It's the $23 million Lotto Max draw. Get your ticket. Use your game sense at playalberta.ca. Right now, we're going to bring in Jason Strudwick at Struds On, brought to you by the JPHL, an academy-style approach for U14, U15, and U18 players with a focus on skill development and education. Learn more at juniorprospectshockeyleague.com. Jason Strudwick, former NHLer, joins us and co-host of the Got Your Back podcast. Struddy, how you doing today?
Good. I think like the rest of Edmonton, maybe a little bit glum, a little bit. I feel bad for those guys. Boy, they put a lot of work in.
They did. They really did. Man, are you noticing it around the city, Struds? Are people a little bit low when they see you?
I think so. I think, it just feels, I think everyone enjoyed the ride, and then it's just so abrupt when it ends. It's like the end of a 7-day trip to Mexico. All of a sudden, it's like, what? It's over the last day, and you're kind of sad, and you pound your last margarita and your last batch of curly fries, and then you get on the plane and go home. So it's just so abrupt, and I think just there have been so many things happening in that series that you felt good as an Oilers fan to think, hey, they're probably going to win, and then they just couldn't quite get it done, and it just. Then you see the guys with the red-rimmed eyes. Obviously there was some tears spilled, and I totally get it. I think the city is a little glum, to put it mildly.
So what went wrong, Struds? The Oilers obviously winning 3 straight games seemed like maybe everything was just going right, and the Florida Panthers finally found a way to dig deep enough and get it right. But what went wrong for the Oilers in game number 7? And I guess you could also cop out and say the Panthers played good too.
Yeah, that would be the easy way. For sure, but I think that the Oilers just couldn't score, and that is kind of an obvious statement. But you think about Bouchard hitting the post, a couple one-timers that didn't work out for Draisaitl. That we know Leon can hit those shots. The only guy who scored was the janitor, Matthias Janmark, who that's a great thing. But there's a lot of other guys that scored a lot more goals than him further up the line that for whatever reason couldn't get a goal. So. Give credit to Florida. They defended the Oilers really hard. I didn't think they had a ton of, 5-alarm chances. And the ones they did were, they were kind of interfered with, or, they were under pressure. And then the Big Bob was there to, find his game after, 3.5 games or 3 of the third games of kind of poor play or subpar play for him. He rallies, finds his groove, and, stop the Oilers. So, you'd like to think if we had said before the game, the Oilers had scored 3 goals to win the game, they'd win it. And they only got 1. And so glum it is in the city today.
Jason Strudwick joining us here on the Jason Gregor Show. Connor Halley sitting in. I've read this a couple of times to a few of our different guests, Struddy, but Darren Drager, I tweeted it out there. He says he believes there's a role for Ken Holland moving forward in Edmonton if capitalized. He wants it. His situation will be clarified within a few days. As of right now, indications are that he will not be at the draft in Vegas. So I just want to ask you, so if you were a free agent, does the management situation cause you any concern going forward? Or do you think if there's agents negotiating, talking to the team, you'd have a bit of an understanding with what is actually going on behind the scenes?
I need to know who the GM's going to be because I want to know if he'd like me or not. You think about it. If let's say you sign on July 1st and a GM is named that either you don't like or he doesn't like you or whatever, there's indifference is on July 7th. You're like, well, what the hell? This guy, I'm not a part of this guy's future. So you're already on the outside looking in. So I would want to know who the GM is and make sure that he wants me on the team prior to my signing on the dotted line.
I'm with you. And I'm sure that's something they'll have clarified very quickly here as we go forward. The Edmonton Oilers, not a first-round pick. They've got a second-round pick and then a handful of picks later on in the draft. Let's just turn the attention to free agency, Struddy. And the Edmonton Oilers, a few players that, the potential to leave. Obviously, Warren Fogle is one that I think a lot of people see taking off. You got Ekholm. You could sign Adam Henrique. Who are you trying to get signed the quickest here just to get it done and out of the way?
Well, I'm going to go off the board. And you're going to love this one, Connor, so get the old text line fired up. What about Mark Stewart? He's the third assistant coach here. And my understanding is when you work for a team, if there's an opportunity for you to move up the food chain, that even if you're under contract, they'll allow you to go somewhere else. So I'm guessing that his pay is not in line with, the first or second assistant coach. He's kind of like the third guy, so he'd be getting a lower salary. So after what he's done with this penalty kill, if I'm looking around the league at a team that needs help on their penalty kill, do you think that they'd be like, well, I wonder if we could take this guy in? I wonder if this guy could do it. So I think, number one, they have to clarify his role on this team, because I think he's an important part of the coaching staff. And I know that's not what, it's not the sexy answer, but I think it's a really important answer when you see how much momentum and how important that penalty kill was. Then as far as the players, it's going to be interesting to see how they handle this, because, I like Henrique, I like Janmark, I like Derek Ryan. I know he's already signed Connor Brown and all these guys, but they're most of them are in their 30s. So if they're looking for a 2 or 3 year contract, does it make sense to go out and sign them for 2 or 3 years when they're the age they are? And then do they lose their wheels, or do they have less juice in them? Like what does that happen? So I think that the age does matter. And so if they all want to sign for 1 year, I'm like, right here, guys, let's sign it right here. But if they're looking for 2 and 3 year contracts, can you sign 3 guys? I think I want to say Brown is 28. I think Henrique's 34, and then Janmark's 31. If they all want 3 years, does that make sense? For it. And then Vinny, I think that Broberg's got to have a place on the team. So everyone else has a contract except Vinny. So does Vinny just walk away? Do you try to sign them and then maybe move someone else out? But these are all decisions that, unfortunately, I'll go back to our original question. You need a GM to figure it out. So Jeff Jackson also have a hand in it. And then, if Ken is still around, he'll have a hand in it. But the GM will have a hand in it as well. So I just can't believe they haven't already thought this through. Like, I'm pretty sure there's probably a plan in place to have a GM ready to go, and he'll kind of put it together. But there's so many questions. And without a GM, I'm not sure you can really truly offer people contracts or figure out what the vision for the team is, along with Jackson, along with Chris Nalbach and the new GM. So everyone's on the same page going through. The timeline is tight. So I would think that, you'd have to know a GM by the end of the weekend.
Jason Strudwick joining us here on the Jason Gregor Show. Connor Halley sitting in. Struddy, we got a little debate going on here when it comes to the Hall of Fame announcements today. I don't know if you saw, but Pavel Datsyuk, Jeremy Roenick, Shea Weber, the NHLers going in on the ice. You also had Natalie Darwitz and Chrissy Wendell-Pohl, and then off the ice, Colin Campbell and David Poyle as builders. But not much argument for Datsyuk and Roenick, but Shea Weber a little polarizing. For me personally, I don't know if I needed to have him as a first ballot Hall of Famer, but I do think he is a Hall of Famer. You went up against him. You saw him on the ice. Is he a Hall of Famer in your eyes?
I really liked him as a player, but I love that kind of player too. So I'm obviously very, very biased. Like, let's just call it as it is. Now, he controlled a lot of the game. He had one of the great shots of his generation. But did he control the game like a Pronger or a Niedermeyer? Probably not. So I'd agree the first ballot's maybe a little bit eye popping, but I do think that he did control the game in many ways. But the guy who's still on the outside looking in is Al McGillney. What does this guy have to do? I think Jeremy Roenick, sure, problems. Some of the others, I get it. But just because I want Al McGillney in there doesn't mean I don't want the other guys in there as well. But Al McGillney, to me, has been overlooked for so long. And again, I am biased. He's a teammate. But when you look at the way he scored goals for a good stretch of time there, he was a really elite player and a good player for a long time. So he had, high numbers on short times, and then, for a long career. Stanley Cup, I think he won Olympics. I think he won World Junior. Like, what more does this guy have to win to get in there? So I think that's an oversight that continues. And I'd love to know, I wish you could ask someone, like, hey, what the hell's going on here? Because I don't know if, I think Lanny McDonald's maybe on it. Like, Lanny, why is this guy not in? Like, what is he missing? Or what do you guys see that you don't value his contribution to the game of hockey?
Yeah, Dave McCarthy brought that up too. Also mentioned, what he had to do to get into the NHL, coming over from the Soviet Union, kind of trailblazing the path. Olympic Games in Calgary, World Championship, and then also the World Juniors. So I'm with you. I was kind of joking how that's an annual question on 5 questions. I think I asked you and Gregor that for 4 or 5 years straight. Who's the biggest snub? And every year it's Alexander McGillney. No questions asked. How about someone had mentioned Ray Whitney as a Hall of Famer? Obviously a 1,000-point player. 2-time All-Star, won a Memorial Cup. For me, I just never thought of Ray Whitney as a great player, like very good, unbelievable career. And I feel like I'm slandering here by saying he's not a Hall of Famer, but I don't mean it to be. I just don't know if he's that level, in my opinion. Would you have Ray Whitney as a Hall of Famer?
Yeah, the Wizard. That's an interesting one. He's a friend of mine as well. And to be fair, I've never really thought about him. In that, my gut says he was a really, really, really good player, but was he elite level player?
Mm-hmm.
Would you put him beside, some of the people who have gone in there in the last 5 years? And I honestly have to sit down and take a look at his numbers. I haven't looked at it recently to really give a number, but I think that to be a Hall of Famer, I think you have to have some really high years, right? Where you're up amongst the best players or sustained for a little while. And I don't know that Ray had that, but he was an amazing player and played a long time. I mean, that guy played a ton and so skilled. So yeah, I mean, I'd have to sit down and look at it, but he does have a good winning resume and then he had played a long time. So the numbers, I just have to look at that. But as far as a guy, he's an amazing guy. So yeah, I should get in there. But by that standard, I'd probably be on the edge of it too.
Yeah. Wow. Great humans. You're a first ballot, Strudwick. There's no doubt about that one. Question for you here, because hockey season, the season's over. So let's turn our attention to the NFL. What are the Giants looking like? And Daniel Jones, what can we expect from him this season?
Oh, goodness. It's you know what? We came off the one where we made the playoffs and won a game, and I was riding the highs at Kite. And then last year, just a complete disaster. And, I don't know what's going on. We got the good receiver. I think he's going to help obviously stretch the field, but can Danny throw it to him? Right? The guy just takes off and you got to launch it down there. So I think it's going to be interesting. I feel like they're really trying to solidify this offensive and defensive line. I think that'll help, which probably should have been done, 10 years ago, but here we are still trying to figure that out. I have low expectations. And I think if I do that, they might just meet them. So I think what are we looking at? 5 wins, maybe 6 wins, 4 wins, somewhere there. I'd be pretty thrilled, I think, at this point.
Head coach is looking pretty trim, though. He's setting the tone.
Have you lost some weight?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Check him out.
Oh, geez. Ozempic? Is he on Ozempic or what's he doing?
He might be on Ozempic. Might be the old-fashioned workout. Kind of want to get that stuff, man. If does it work? It has to work. It's working for all the celebrities. Maybe I need it.
Yeah.
Give it a go.
Yeah.
Struddy, thanks for doing this today. Appreciate it. And we'll talk to you next Tuesday.
Yeah. Sounds good, guys. Going to be a crazy 10 days, I think, in the NHL. So buckle up, Oilers fans. It's going to be fun.
Absolutely. It's Jason Strudwick, former NHLer, co-host of Got Your Back podcast with Rashog. And like you said, if there was a Hall of Fame for good guys, Struddy would be first ballot. Right now, Canada taking on Peru at Copa America. Peru's had a few good opportunities, but still scoreless. We're in the 36th minute here and hoping Canada can get something going. 1-833-401-1440. Morgan says McGillney and Cujo were snubbed again. Yeah, I mean, Cujo, not quite as many texts coming in here, but McGillney, everyone saying, we got to get this guy in the Hall of Fame. I don't know what the deal is. Stephen St. Albert, hey, boys, I just wanted to say I'm proud of the boys. They did so well this year considering how the season started. I look forward to the year 2024, 2025, and we will be back in the same spot. Hopefully, we'll finish it off next season. We'll see. It is a lot of things have to go right for you. So I hope they can get back there. It'll be a tough test. Vancouver is going to be a challenge. Got to think Vegas will find a way to keep it interesting. Dallas, Colorado, could Winnipeg bounce back strong. Then you got to look at the out east. We'll see. It's going to be fun. An interesting offseason coming up for sure for the Edmonton Oilers. Matt says the real error is that Henrik Zetterberg still isn't in the Hall of Fame. He was first eligible in 2022 when Henrik and Daniel got in over him, even though he's better than them both. Morgan talking about Whitney says, awesome guy, awesome player, not a Hall of Famer. Jordan says, I don't know if we got to one of these similar already. Thought I'd wake up angry or sad, but instead I woke up proud and grateful. Watched the modern day equivalent of Gretzky along with my son. So many lifetime memories, ultimately for a fan. Isn't that what it's all about? I did read that already, but I'll read it again in case somebody's tuning in here. Jason, I like Shea Weber, but he's not first ballot Hall of Fame. Is that you, Struddy? Or just the same name? That's totally fair. Totally fair. And Joe Daddy says, do you think there's a chance the Oilers could bring in Jake DeBrusk? I mean, I suppose there's a chance. I don't know how realistic it would be. Yeah, he's a good player. I don't know if it's the connection, or to the city, his dad, what it might be. But he's a name that does tend to pop up quite a bit. But good player, good guy. Met him once. He and his dad came into the old studio once for Struddy's birthday and brought ice cream cake. So, yeah, hey, I'm a fan of the DeBrusk family. We'll take a break. When we come back, 5 questions with Declan Kruger. It is the Jason Gregor Show. Connor Halley with you here, brought to you by PlayAlberta.ca.
What's cracking at Cat?
And if you're thinking hybrid, save $6,000 off all 2024 new and demo XC60 Recharge plug-in models. Discover why we're Canada's only 13-time Volvo Excellence Award winner. 1205 101st Street Southwest or visit volvocarsedmonton.com.
As a business owner, you know that good business is based on good relationships. So imagine, how would you feel if your commercial insurance was driven by people, not products? At High Street Insurance, we've been serving Canadian businesses like yours for 10 years. People, taking care of people. We take the time to learn about your business so we can ensure that your insurance coverage is finely tuned to the nuances of your commercial situation. Good protection starts with understanding you. Reach out to us today at highstreetinsurance.com.
Edmonton's premium live music and party venue is On the Rocks. Check out
The Jason Gregor Show. Connor Halley, Declan Kruger, Donovan Paulson with you. Gregor en route. He'll be back tomorrow. The show brought to you by PlayAlberta.ca. A reminder, tonight's Lotto Max, $23 million. If you're like me and you didn't win the 50-50 last night, maybe you want to get in on this one. PlayAlberta.ca. It'd be a little bit more, like double the amount you could have won last night. Declan, what's the first thing you're buying if you won 23 mil?
Oh, 23 mil?
23 mil.
Probably like a $20 million private jet.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good investment.
Yeah. And then I think the other 3 mil maybe, like give it to Donovan.
Nice.
He's been pretty good to me. So
jeez.
Yeah. Something like that.
It'd be gone quick.
If he keeps me up here on the screen, lets me flash the pearly whites, he'll get the extra 3 mil.
Easy. Now you just got to buy the ticket. PlayAlberta.ca. Right now, let's get to 5 questions brought to you by The Brick. Lots going on. The blowout sale. You can check them out. 60% off sofas when you buy the matching love seat or chair. Only in The Brick and thebrick.com.
It's time for 5 questions on the Jason Gregor Show.
All right, Connor. Now, I do apologize in advance a little bit because we've talked a good bit about some of the questions here. They came in late. There was a bit of a discrepancy on who was going to make them. But I will start with question number 1. If you had to point to one reason, and I know it's so hard to do that. I know it's so hard to point to one singular reason in a 7-game series. But if you had to say there was one reason the Oilers lost this series, what would it be?
I'm going to say one thing that can encapsulate a lot of things. Inconsistency. I just think, the Florida Panthers were a very good team, and they took advantage of some of the Oilers' deficiencies and played to their strengths. But, if you're able to just bury the puck the way they could in games 4, 5, and 6, in game 1, just a couple goals. That's all you need, really. I think that you find a way to win that game. And that was probably the biggest change or game changer for this series. So inconsistent play, just less up and downs, a little more consistency. I think you find a way to win.
Question number 2.
Whoa, you got to answer too.
Oh, you want me to answer?
I need you to answer.
I like what you said about inconsistency. I'm big in the camp. Like, I know a lot of people want to talk about injuries. Oilers were the better team for 5 of the games, et cetera, et cetera. I'm big in the camp of giving credit where it's due to Florida. Like, Florida was the team that won 4 out of the 7 games. Bob stepped up when he needed to. It's a bit too easy of an answer to say. I just like credit to Florida, even though I do think that's a large part of it. But I would say I would echo your sentiment about inconsistencies when they needed to be consistent, and potential and just a little too much caution in game 7 when they needed to be on the gas a little bit more.
I like it. Okay.
Number 2, what are the top 3 offseason priorities for the Edmonton Oilers?
Oh, top 3. I'm going to say...
If that's not enough, you can do like top 5 or 6.
Oh, don't worry. That is enough. I'll say priority 1, because it will help you out. Find a way to create more cap space. Whatever it might be. If you have to make a trade, we've heard the names Jack Campbell. We've seen Evander Kane pop up, Cody Ceci. If you're able to find a way to make some cap space to help bring players in, that would be 1. I will say re-sign Adam Henrique. I like to see him stick around. I thought that he was nice. You can throw him up on the top line in a pinch if you need to, but also really stabilize that third line when he was down there. And the third line, solid backup for your guy, Stuart Skinner. If you believe it's Jack Campbell, go for it. If you think it's Cal Pickard, go for it. But find someone that you can trust to go out there and play, 30 to 33 games, whatever the number might be, so Stuart Skinner can still get a little bit of rest and be good to go playoff time.
Question number 3. The 2024 Hall of Fame inductees were announced, obviously headlined by Pavel Datsyuk, Jeremy Roenick, Shea Weber. We've talked about this a good little bit, but we're going to talk about it one more time. Are there any players you feel were undeserved? Hint, hint, one name we've talked about. And who missed out that you think should have been in?
Colin Campbell. What is he doing in there? No, I think that all the players that got in there, male, female builders, I think it's all deserved. I don't think you get in there without, having a reason to get in there. I don't think there's too many people that get pushed in there The snubs, though, I hate to hop on the bandwagon, but Alexander McGillney, I mean, he's the biggest one.
Yeah.
And we've just said it for so many years. What is the holdup? What is the reason for it? We had somebody say political affiliation. Maybe. I don't know enough about that sort of thing. But 3 or 4 years ago, it could have happened, and it hasn't. So I'm going to go with Alexander McGillney. I don't know if you have any other ones.
Yeah, I mean, Zetterberg, I think, should be in there. Theo Fleury gets tossed around a little bit, but it's tough to score 76 goals, man.
Yeah.
It's tough to score 76 goals. I know he might not have had the longevity of some, but I would like to see Alex McGillney in the Hall for all he accomplished. Question number 4. The NBA draft is tomorrow. Who do you think will be the top pick, and where, if anywhere, does Bronny James go? Because it wouldn't be sports talk radio in any market if there wasn't a LeBron James connection.
It's wild. It is wild that if his name is Connor Halley, Declan, is he drafted?
First overall.
yeah, I don't know about that
No,
one.
I hear you. I know what you mean.
I'll say Bronny James does go. I'll say mid to late second round. If it's going to get you LeBron, I mean,
you go for it. It's probably worth a year of LeBron, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, we'll see how good it is, and then first overall pick. I don't want to ruin his name here. Zachary Richard?
Yeah, Richard.
Okay, it's French.
He's a French guy.
Yeah, I've struggled with the French names. I apologize. I didn't go to a French school.
Well, you know what I'll tell you? These mock drafts got to have like some phonetic pronunciation, because I would imagine that one gets butchered quite a fair bit.
It'd be good. He's got some guard and forward versatility, right? Like a guy who can play in a few different spots. I think for the Atlanta Hawks, that could be good. So I'll go there. How about you?
There's been a lot of push that he's going to go first as of late. I think this is a weak draft, like really, really weak, maybe the weakest in my lifetime watching basketball. Like at least since I've been able to follow the game closely. I would maybe say Alex Sarr. He's a French kid as well. He's big, tall, 7-footer, plays for Perth, I believe, in the NBL. I think he's probably the most pro ready, and I just think he also probably is the most upside. So if I was a GM, I'd say him, Alex Sarr.
Quickly, do you have a bias or preference? Like, do you like guys that play pro in Europe, or the G League, or the collegiate route?
Like as far as what I think is best for their careers and the best for their NBA development?
Yeah.
I think you're playing better competition in Europe, I think. And I mean that is like the players who play in college basketball in America will go on to be better pro NBA players than the guys in Europe, because, no disrespect, but they're playing in Europe. But in Europe, you're playing the pro game and you're playing against grown men. And I know the rule set's a little bit different, but there's still that pro feel to it. So I think that benefits you. But the talent you see at high level, power conference schools in college basketball is tough to match. But again, the game in college basketball is changing a little bit. It's not one and done. It's not, this talent coming in, boom, boom, boom. It's players getting developed a little bit more. So I think there's benefits to each. I would maybe say just history would prove that college is the best route, though.
All right.
Question number 5. A lot of great sporting events this month. Obviously we had the Stanley Cup, the NBA Finals, Copa America, the Euros. Leads me to this question. If you could see one sporting event live in person, what would it be?
Any month?
Any month.
I wouldn't want to see the Super Bowl. I think that's a little bit too chaotic. All the sports you probably want to go see would be pretty chaotic. I will say, it's just so stupid because I'm not even a fan of the sport, but I'd love to go see a NASCAR race.
Really?
Like Talladega or something.
Daytona 500 or something.
I want to go down to the South and I just want to take that all in because I think it'd be great. People watching, I think it'd be a good time. Buy a hat, support a team. I've seen football, I've seen hockey, baseball, basketball. I've seen those things. So, darts maybe would be cool too. But,
yeah, that'd be a really cool environment.
But I'll put NASCAR. How about you?
First of all, I love the darts shout out because I don't think you were being sarcastic at all.
No, those crowds are crazy.
Those crowds are insane. I'm very glad you said that. For me though, easy one. I would want to see the gentleman's final at Wimbledon. Yeah, I thought about that a lot. Would love to see that.
What's the atmosphere like at those?
pretty posh. I would definitely not fit in. They'd see my car and turn me away at the gate, but I think it'd be fun to be there. The World Cup final would also be incredible, but that's just like, it's kind of like the Super Bowl turned up to 11, right? Like it's just a little too wild. But I think seeing the gentlemen's singles final at Wimbledon would be pretty incredible.
You're rolling your car up to Wimbledon?
Yeah, I'd ship it over to the UK and drive it. I like the feel of it. It's got to feel like home a little bit, you know?
That'd be so classy. I think there are some really good ones, especially with the Olympics coming up, like 100 meter. The glamour event would be cool.
Yeah, see Noah Lyles pull out like a Yu-Gi-Oh card from his name tag and then rip a world record.
And I love diving.
Oh,
I really got into it. Like those athletes are unbelievable. When they do like pairs, I almost did tandem. When they do the pairs dive and like in perfect unison, no splash,
it is crazy. Dude, well, I was a swimmer growing up, right? So I have a lot of appreciation for like a really good swimming event as well. Like a really good, like the 100 meter free is a really good one because it's just, you know, quick sprint. 200 is also great. A lot of the IM events are great. So yeah, something at the Olympics would be cool too.
Summer McIntosh gonna crush it here?
Yes, she is. My goodness, she might no one probably knows who she is, and obviously this is hyperbole to some degree, but she like might already be the best Canadian athlete ever. Like she is so incredible, Matt. You guys are gonna hear a lot about her this summer.
Her and Penny, will they be competing in the 4x whatever?
The relay, yeah. I mean, we'll have to see how it all shapes out. Like Canada won't be winning any relays. The team just isn't strong enough, so you don't have to worry about that. But Summer, as an individual swimmer, watch out for her because she's a force to be reckoned with.
I thought they did win some of the relays back in like 2020.
No, they ain't winning at the Olympics.
Oh, want to bet?
They ain't winning this year, but we'll look into it.
I have so much patriotic belief. I just want to believe that they can do it. I thought they did it. Anyways, doesn't really matter. Well, we can check in. Still to come on the show here, we will be joined by Mark Spector of Rogers Sportsnet. We'll also get to more of your texts here. Let us know any sporting event in the world you can go to. Which would you pick? Ty, the says he's been to Talladega, Alabama. It was a blast. Totally worth it. Okay. Just reinforces the fact that I do need to go check that out one of these days. Oh, man, imagine going to like a race and then a football game. I don't know if the timeline checks out, but even if you go to like a spring game, see the Crimson Tide, that'd be pretty cool. Bucket list. K-Fed says shake and bake. Absolutely. Let's get to Sports 1440 update with Declan Kruger, brought to you by High Street Insurance, driven by people, not products. We are people taking care of people for 10 years, servicing Canadian businesses like yours. HighStreetInsurance.com. Here is Declan Kruger.
This is a Sports 1440 update.
And for your Sports 1440 update, we're going to start in the Euros. A couple scores from earlier today was France and Poland tying 1-1. France moving to 1-2-0 in the tournament. Poland moving to 0-1-2. Netherlands fell to Austria 3-2. Netherlands 1-1-1 after group play. Austria top of their group at 2-0-1. Denmark and Serbia tied at 0-0. Denmark moving to 0-2-0, and Serbia with the draw moves to 0-1-1. Only other game in the Euros today was England and Slovenia. They tied at 0-0 as well. England 1-1-0 in this tournament. Slovenia 0-2-0. Copa America action sees Peru and Canada tied 0-0 at halftime. Chile and Argentina set to go at 7. And in the MLB, we finally have a couple of games underway. The Guardians leading the Orioles 3-2 in the top of the second. The Phillies and Tigers also in the top of the second, tied at 0-0. And the Rays leading the Mariners 1-0 in the bottom of the first. Blue Jays will be in action later today, getting going in about 12 minutes or so here in Boston, taking on the Red Sox, and it's going to be Kevin Gausman on the mound in that one. News out of the NHL as the Hockey Hall of Fame has announced their inductees for this year. Pavel Datsyuk, Jeremy Roenick, Shea Weber, Natalie Darwitz, Chrissy Wendell-Pohl as players, and Colin Campbell and David Poyle as builders will be inducted this November. Signings in the NHL earlier today. It was the Avalanche signing forward Casey Middlestat to a 3-year, $17.25 million extension, and the Jets signing Dylan DeMello to a 4-year, $19.6 million extension. In trade news, Wallman is headed from the Red Wings to the San Jose Sharks. And in NBA news, New York Knicks' OG Anunoby has opted out of his contract and will be a free agent. Edmonton Riverhawks in action tonight against Bellingham. That one goes just after 7. And we're going to have more of the Jason Gregor Show with Connor Halley coming up here in Hour 4, where we'll be joined by Mark Spector. I'm Declan Kruger, and this has been a Sports 1440 update.
Sports 14.
It is just after 5 o'clock, coming to you live from the eWell studio. The show brought to you by PlayAlberta.ca. Make sure you head over to PlayAlberta.ca, grab your ticket. $23 million up for grabs in the Lotto Max. Use your game sense. Also, you can use the code word SUMMER and get a free $50 casino play with a minimum $5 deposit. Connor Halley, Declan Kruger, and Donovan Paulson with you here on the show. Gregor will be back tomorrow, just en route home from Florida. We'll talk to another man who spent a little bit of time in Florida the last couple of weeks here, Mark Spector, in the Spec Report, brought to you by GS Construction. They are still hiring and looking for laborers, pipe layers, pipe layer helpers, top men and women, lead hands, and water and sewer foremen. Go to Indeed.com and look up GS Construction. Mark Spector joins us from Rogers Sportsnet. Spec, how are you doing today?
Awesome, Connor. What's going on?
Not a whole lot. Just getting through the show here. You're back in town, it looks like. What time did you get out of Sunrise here?
Yeah, bad. Back in Sadmonton today. Everyone I run into is a little bit sad today. Got out there, was on an 8 o'clock flight, so I got home here around 2:30. And yeah, we're taking the rest of the day free, and I think there's going to be a couple Oiler avails tomorrow, maybe. I think they're having their exit interviews and stuff like that, sort of the wrap-up meetings at the rink tomorrow.
Now, are you heading to Vegas at all for draft coverage?
No chance. No, the Oilers, I cover the Oilers mostly for Sportsnet, and Edmonton doesn't even have a first-round pick, so other guys will go cover that for us.
Take it easy for a few days, as you can, as much as you can.
Yes,
I'm going to ask you this. You said that. You cover the Oilers. Wide open question for you. If someone says, Spec, tell me a little bit about the 2023-2024 Edmonton Oilers. Where do you even begin? How do you put maybe an end to this season here?
It's hard to, when you think about what separated them from being a Stanley Cup champion. I mean, just a bounce here and a post there, and I'd say to you that honestly, I thought Vegas was probably the better team in that Game 7. I thought they had the puck more, and I thought all the things they had done early in the series that the Oilers were having a hard time with, they found them again. I thought they had a lot of control, but not complete control. I mean, the Oilers pushed back, and they had tons of possession in the last half of the game. That chance that McDavid and Hyman couldn't steer into the net, and I thought there was a one-timer for Draisaitl for McDavid in the second period that he buries all season long that he didn't. There's that puck squeezes past the post that Kulikov clears. Bouchard hits the post, it goes out, not in. You tell me, right? How is this? Define why Florida is a better team than Edmonton. You just can't. It's just that's how hockey works. And unfortunately for the Oilers, they got the wrong side of the inch last night.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. That Bouchard goes the other way, and we could have a whole different story here. So now we turn to the inevitabilities. There is going to be some turnover with this team. The team does have some RFAs who we obviously will see back here within the UFAs as well. So if you're the people in charge of re-signing Oilers unrestricted free agents here, is there any guys that you think you can't miss, like you have to have back going into the next season?
Well, I think Desharnais is a very important guy. Your RFAs, Holloway and Broberg, you're signing them for sure.
Yeah.
Right? So that's just a given. You have both those guys back. I don't think you want to lose Desharnais, but you can't pay him too much money. You can't, if his agent's out there finding a $3 million from someone else, you may not be able to pay him that much. It may not work in your budget. Desharnais is one of those guys like Big Zadorov or Tyler Myers. The only thing you don't like about their game is if they make too much money, right? So all these people that love Desharnais, and I like him a lot, but if he's making too much money and throws your salary cap off, you got to figure that out. I don't think they'll be able to sign Fogle. I have a feeling off a 20-goal season, Fogle will get a raise somewhere. I don't think this team can afford to give him a raise. I doubt Henrique comes back, right? He needs a new deal, and he's probably in the $5 million range, and I just don't see it. Frankly, I'm not sure that'll happen here. So, they got to make some choices. They got to figure out their cap, and they got to project, because they got to sign Bouchard coming up, and they got to sign Draisaitl. So there's a lot of work to be done in the GM's chair. We got to figure out who that GM's going to be, huh, Connor?
Absolutely. We saw the Darren Traeger report out there. He's could be welcome back, talking Ken Holland in an advisory role, but likely won't be with the team at the draft in Vegas. So that's interesting to see. Now, Spec, how about between the pipes? Let's say Stuart Skinner is your starter going forward here. We've talked about it a little bit on this show. Some people say maybe Jack Campbell could be brought back up. Other people say Olivier Rodrigue. Some people want Cal Pickard re-signed. Who do you think would be the ideal backup for Skinner next season?
Pickard's the ideal backup. I think they'll probably buy out Campbell. I suspect. You're not running Campbell back here again. Like that ship's got to have sailed, hasn't it? You know, I'm thinking it has. Olivier Rodrigue hasn't played in the NHL, so don't tell me I'm bringing in a backup goalie that I want to play 30 starts. That's basically never played a game. That's not on this team, not in a good team. So, you know, I guess it all starts with Pickard. Like, I know Pickard was fantastic this year. He's all the backup you need here, and he's beloved in the dressing room, and he's a perfect backup. The only question is if his agent goes out and finds him a deal somewhere where he's making more than you want to pay him here. So they'll have to figure that out. But if beyond paychecks, if you're asking me who the perfect backup here is, it's Calvin Pickard all day long in my books.
Heading into free agency, that'll get going on July 1st. The Edmonton Oilers, obviously, cap space will be an issue and things will have to work around. Where do you think is the area of need that they should be looking to target through free agency?
Well, oh boy, you know, they were one goal away from winning the Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying they're the perfect team. There is no perfect team, but you know, it's more so it starts with me with who's not coming back. Okay, let's say Fogel's not coming back. I got to find a left winger somewhere. Let's say Enrique's not coming back. I frankly, you know, if I'm running this team, I let McLeod be the left winger that if Fogel goes, and I go out and find a third line center. You know, I like McLeod on the wing. I don't love him as a centerman. So, you know, there's that. Are you going to get Janmark signed? I sure hope so. You know, I will say I'm not right often, but I'm one of those guys that back in October and November when people were saying, what do we have this old, slow Swede on the ice? Why don't we bring up Lavoie or Bourgault? And I'm a guy that said, no. Who cares what he does in the regular season? Wait for the playoffs. You'll like him then. Janmark can play for my team all day long next year for sure. So if you can sign him, great. If not, you got to go out and find the next one, right? So, you know, I'm not saying they can't improve. Are you going to sign Carrick? What's going to happen with Ryan? Is Ryan going to make this team next year, or are you going to bury that 900? I'm not sure on all those things. So, you know, they got some question marks here. There's no doubt about it.
Mark Spector of Rogers Sportsnet joining us here on the Jason Gregor Show. Connor Halley sitting in for today. Spec, we had some people, you know, I wouldn't even say it was upset, maybe just kind of wanted to pick our brain. So I want to ask you as well. Connor McDavid didn't go out there for the Conn Smythe Trophy presentation. Personally, I had no issue with it. What did you think about that?
You got to understand what's going on with the captain of a hockey team here. Like, it's so ridiculous to take issue with this. It's people who don't have a clue how hockey works. So the Oilers, Connors leads his team in the handshake, right? And then he stands by the gate and he waits for every single Oiler to come off the ice. And then he goes in the dressing room with his team. They've been fighting together for 8 months. They go in the dressing room. They've just lost the most painful game of their lives. And now he's supposed to go back. He's supposed to say to his teammates, okay, you guys wait here. I'm going out to get my trophy. Connor McDavid is never going to do that, right? No decent captain in hockey would ever do that. So if you think they would, you should just get a sandwich board that says, I don't have a clue how hockey works. And beyond that, you think he's going out onto Florida's ice while they're celebrating a cup and they're waiting for their Stanley Cup, and he's going to reemerge as the captain of the Oilers and jump into their celebration and grab his trophy and take pictures? Like, have you watched this guy play for 5 minutes in your life? You know, I'm on Twitter today on the plane seeing these people, and every one of them is telling me that they don't have a clue how an NHL dressing room works. That is the stupidest opinion there is to have. And if you have it, you better get back to school because you don't know what you're talking about.
I'm totally with you on that one. I mean, old enough to remember when J.S. Jaguar went out there and we saw his face. I don't think he wanted to be there. I think he just did it, and it didn't go well. And you're right. He's out there. He's in there with his teammates. Totally ridiculous. I think he would have even considered going back out there. I don't think he wants that trophy, Spec, without the other one to go along with it.
No, he doesn't want the. I mean, you know, he wins the trophy. He'll accept the trophy. One day he'll take a picture with the trophy, and that's great. His name's going to be on the trophy. Good for him. But no. Connor McDavid does not show up at the Stanley Cup Finals to collect an individual trophy while all his teammates wait for him in the dressing room, having lost out on the real trophy. Like, you know what? I got a better chance of playing for the Oilers myself next year than ever seeing that happen. That's just ridiculous to think that he would do that.
Before we let you go here, Spec, just a couple of those RFAs we did talk about, Dylan Holloway and Philip Broberg. I think a lot of people have some big expectations or optimism for what they could become based off what we saw in the Stanley Cup playoffs here. We'll start off with Broberg and then maybe go to Holloway. But what do you expect for the young blue liner getting back out there next season? Is he a guy, power play time, second pairing? What do you think about Philip Broberg?
Well, I mean, how much power play time is there for Philip Broberg? Unless Bouchard gets injured, there's no power play time for Philip Broberg, right? My guess on the second unit, he can have the last 15 seconds, but no power play time. But Philip Broberg, you now have to make. I mean, he had such a strong playoff. He was so good for a guy coming in the way he did in Game 4 against Dallas. I mean, you can't ask for more from a young guy. So you got to figure out how he's going to be part of your top six. The question mark now becomes, he's a lefty, let's start at the top. You're not getting rid of Bouchard. You're not getting rid of Ekholm. You're not getting rid of Nurse. I think you want Desharnais on your team for sure. That's 4. Broberg's the 5th guy. So now you got Kulak and you got Ceci, right? I don't think you're going into next season with all 7 of those guys. They all have to play. They're all regular players. So Ceci's a righty, but I sure do like Kulak's game. Kulak was look how good he was in the playoffs. So for me, if I'm trying to clear salary, I'm probably thinking about if I can move Ceci on the last year of his deal. I like him a lot more than a lot of our listeners do, but I got to play Broberg next year. He's got to play 82 games for me.
Spec, I lied. I got one more question for you because the Hall of Fame class came out here. Datsuk, Weber, Jeremy Roenick, the NHL players who got in there. Want to ask you, Alexander McGillney, is he ever going to get in the Hall of Fame? Because the consensus amongst our listeners in the text line is that's the biggest snub this year.
Yeah, he's the biggest snub the last couple of years. His numbers are Hall of Fame numbers. It's such a subjective thing. Like, you look at some of them, you can always find a guy whose numbers aren't as good as the guy you want in there, So, yes, Alexander McGillney has Hall of Fame numbers. There's no question. No, I don't know why he's not making it in. It's not a Russian thing because they put Datsuk in this year, right? Mm-hmm. So, honestly, I don't have the answer. I don't know why it is. I'm sure there's no vendetta here. He didn't, he was a well-liked player. He was a productive player, all the right things. I don't know why he doesn't get in, honestly, Connor. I really don't have an answer for you on that.
And then just Shea Weber. What are your thoughts on that one? Because he was another one more controversial.
Yeah, I think in the end, he went in today, right?
Yes, he did.
Yes, he did. Right. Yeah. To me, he is, we can quibble over how fast the guy gets in. Should he got in last year? Should he have to wait till next year? Blah, blah, blah. Shea Weber's a Hall of Fame player. He was one of the very best defensemen in the league during, probably for a 5 or 6 year period. He was one of the top guys. He's a Team Canada defenseman. He did everything. He's one of the best defensemen I've ever watched play in my career. I honestly don't see how there would be some argument that he shouldn't be in there. Yeah, some guy's going to have scored more goals than Shea Weber. We're talking about a defenseman here, right? It's not all about offense when we're talking about defensemen. So, yeah, in my books, Shea Weber's in the Hall of Fame all day long.
Hey, you and I are on the same page with that one. We'll wrap it up with that. Thanks so much for doing this, and we'll talk to you tomorrow with Gregor back here.
All right, sounds good, Connor.
There you go. Mark Spector of Rogers Sportsnet joining us. Obviously, the guy needs a little bit of a break. A lot of traveling for Spec and the whole media conglomerate, the players, everyone needs a little bit of a break after that one. For some, though, they're heading out to Vegas for the NHL draft, and I'm sure that there will be a pretty good time. If you're going to Vegas to cover the draft's on Friday. Some might get in there Thursday. I'd be there right now. I would take a couple days in Vegas, maybe do a couple pool parties, see a show, have a good time, and then get ready to cover the draft. But it's going to be a good time down in Sin City at the Sphere. See what they can do. I'm sure they'll put on a heck of a show at the NHL draft. We got the NBA draft getting going tomorrow. So coming up next on the show, Declan Kruger and I will discuss that a little bit in the NBA report. We'll also keep your text coming in here. Declan asked the question, of all the sporting events you could go to, which would you pick? We've got some good ones that have come in already, so we'll get to those after the break. It is The Jason Gregor Show here on Sports 1440. Halley, Kruger, and Paulson with you here. Brought to you by PlayAlberta.ca.
Elk Island ruled
Jason Gregor Show here on Sports 1440. Brought to you by PlayAlberta.ca. Make sure to use your game sense. Connor Halley, Duncan Kruger with you here. 1-833-401-1440. That is a text line. If you want to get in on the conversation. Copa America, Peru just taking a red card. They would review it. Looks like the Peru player went through the ball, but came up cleats high. And Peru down one man for the remainder of the game. I believe we're in the 58th minute, give or take. So
Can't do that.
Lots of time for Canada here. 58th minute, a man down. Very advantageous for the Canadians. I don't know if you saw the play, Declan.
Can't do that.
Man, it's tough.
I can't do that.
Cleats come in high like that.
You know, I actually got warned in my last soccer game for that.
You're
swear.
Coming in cleats up?
I was coming in cleats up. Intent to injure. It was vicious.
Can hurt. It really can. We did ask you guys about which gaming event, sports event you'd like to go to. Harry says, Ann Arbor, big house with my son. 114,000 people. Yeah, the big house would be cool. Harbaugh's house, as I like to call it. Other people, World Cup Cricket, New Zealand, whenever it's there next, from Playbook Vic. We had Le Mans from Shopcat, or an F1 race, or WRC. Skippy says he went to a F1 race in Austin, Texas. Pretty incredible 3-day event. Has to be experienced. Over 400,000 people attended that 3-day event. The first time those cars come by is something you never forget. That said, I'd rather watch it on TV, as there's so much going on the racetrack that you miss when you're there in person. Skippy, yeah, I get that. I mean, there would be so much to see, and you're just kind of stuck in your one spot. Eden, Father Various, says Kentucky Derby. Gord says, in hindsight, I would not pick Game 7 of the 2024 Stanley Cup Finals. Yes, I would totally agree with you on that one. Couple more texts here just regarding the Oilers. What do they need to look for in the old offseason here? Right-handed forwards, specifically centers. Yeah, help on the blue line. And Ryan says, in 1987, when Hextall won the Conn Smythe in Edmonton, they simply announced it in the arena during the handshakes and then presented it to him in the dressing room. Way better than what they did last night. No way Connor should be expected to accept that on the ice. Ryan, thanks for tuning in, Ryan. I totally agree. It's just like, what do you want him to do? It was bad when J.S. Jaguar did it, coming out during the Devils celebration. His face looked like he was absolutely mortified. Just didn't need to do it. Anyways, let's talk a little bit about the NBA. We'll get to the NBA report brought to you by Legacy Heating and Cooling. Home of no payments, no interest for 1 year on your AC unit. Stay cool all summer at legacyheating.ca. Declan, looking into this draft here, you said it earlier on in 5 questions, maybe one of the weaker drafts that we've seen in the last few years, in your lifetime even.
Yeah.
That's tough. I mean, I always think back to Anthony Bennett when he was the first overall pick for the Cavaliers, and it just didn't pan out. Like, you're never going to say no to being first overall, but there's always going to be heightened expectations this year. Is there someone who you think, maybe not superstar status, but could be a player, someone who maybe in a few years develops into someone who could be the face of a franchise?
Oh, man. Someone who could develop into the face of a franchise, hey?
That sounds like a no.
I just don't see it in this draft. And I definitely don't see it like late. Now, obviously, you always have outliers in draft. Like, I don't think too many people thought Giannis was going to become a face of a franchise when he was drafted. I don't think too many people thought, Jimmy Butler would turn into what he turned into when he was drafted 30. He's arguably been the face of a couple franchises in his time. So there's obviously always those outliers. But on first glance, no, like not really. Like Alex Sarr would be the one because I think he has a diverse skill set. But I think he would be the face of a franchise that's in a bad situation, if anything, right? So he would be the guy. But even that, I'm pretty hesitant to go ahead and give him that stamp of approval on.
How it is kind of interesting because it is all about situation and where you land.
Yeah, of course.
Well, one guy that we've really adopted here at 1440, and I'll just maybe not actually, but the Oklahoma City Thunder, an SGA.
Yes.
11th overall pick. Now, he was selected by the Hornets and then went to the Clippers, like a sign and trade or draft and trade.
Yeah. Never played for the Hornets.
Never played for the Hornets. Spent a couple years with the Clippers. I mean, you can tell better than I can, but really didn't burst onto the scene for the last couple of years with the OKC Thunder. So I wonder if there are any of those guys that maybe in a few years really start to show up. I hope so, for the sake of these young men and the teams that select them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe one guy you could look to, like just someone who was dynamic at a big time school and played well when he needed to, would be like a Jared McCain who played at Duke this past year. He would be one. Like he's not projected to go as high as Rob Dillingham or Reed Shepherd, the two Kentucky kids. Jared McCain maybe could be like that because he's a guy who has the ball in his hand a lot. He's a really good playmaker. Like I'm not saying he's a comparable to SGA, like in their play styles or anything, because SGA is more of a scorer. But he could be that guy who's like a Tyrese Halliburton kind to face the franchise and is just a really good playmaker, makes everyone better. He has good shot selection. So he could be a guy in that camp. I don't know. I mentioned Rob Dillingham, Reed Shepherd, just as big name guys from Kentucky. Rob Dillingham, he's a skilled player, don't get me wrong, but he dribbles the ball. He power dribbles the ball at the top of the key and then just forces some wild shot like every time, it seems, which isn't the worst thing to do in the NBA. There are a lot of guys who do that and get a lot of big money for it. So I give him that credit. But maybe Jared McCain. He would be the one name I would come back to.
How about Zach Edey? Canadian from Purdue, obviously. We all know the name. Some people maybe a little slow for the pro game. What do you make of him?
Yeah, way too slow for the pro game. But I will say there was crazy improvement between even his 2022 and his 2023 seasons. Like this past season, his footwork was so much better defensively. Like he was getting blown by like fifth year, grad student transfers. In the Big Ten tournament, then obviously that won the NCAA tournament game they had against Farley Dickinson. Like he was so slow defensively. He did pick it up this year, but he is going to be facing this guy is never ever going to be able to get out on the perimeter and defend. We know that. Like he knows that. He knows anytime he gets switched, he's going to be barbecue chicken, and he knows that's not his game. It is what it is. But where he needs to make his bread and butter is still faster foot speed off switches when someone takes it to the hole. That's what I think he's going to struggle with. He's not really he's a fine shot blocker. He's obviously huge. He's 7'4". You would expect him to maybe be a little bit better for his size. I just think his game is too one-dimensional offensively, and I don't think he has enough defensive acumen to really be like he might end up being a great player because he's so big and he's very coachable and he learns well and he can obviously score down low. He's going to be bigger than pretty much everyone in the NBA and he's going to have his back to the basket a lot, and he's built a very fine career at Purdue doing that. So offensively, like maybe I'm being a little too harsh on him. He might get his buckets, he might be fine, but defensively is where I think he'll be exposed a little bit. But if whatever team drafts him can keep him out of situations where he's in switches and he has to be outside of the key, he may be fine.
A little change here for Canada. Richie Laryea coming out and Tajon Buchanan into the lineup. 66th minute, Canada and Peru scoreless. Peru down a guy due to a red card. Declan, I'm looking forward to this draft. I mean, I like all drafts.
Drafts are so much fun.
Big time nerd when it comes to those things. 2-day event now. We'll have the round 1 on Wednesday, round 2 Thursday. So that's going to be cool to see. I'm nervous for the Toronto Raptors. I will say that's my team. Rooting for him for a long time. Scotty Barnes gets that big time extension. I think they got to find the running mate for him.
A lot of money. Yep.
Yeah. And then you saying that this draft might not be the best, even though, their pick selection is not ideal either. Worries me just a little bit.
Yeah. It's a weak draft. And obviously the Raptors are drafting way down there on the board at 19. I don't know who's going to be around at 19.
Whoa. Bronny
James should be there at 19, but they also should not be taken with the 9th overall pick. I don't know, man. Like if you get I like Isaiah Collier out of USC. He played college ball with Bronny this past season. It was by far the best player on that USC team. So he's a guy. Maybe you look at Ryan Dunn, went to Virginia, I think it was. He was a nice player out of Virginia. Maybe someone like him. But again, like it's just you're not even finding you're for sure not finding a transcendent franchise player. You're probably not even finding a running mate with the 19th overall pick in this draft. Like it's just like I don't know. There was one mock draft I saw, and it was actually it had Richer going number 1 overall, and his pro comparisons were Harrison Barnes and Tobias Harris, and he was the number 1 overall mock draft selection. Like the number 1 overall pick this year is compared to Harrison Barnes and Tobias Harris. Like that would be the number 1 overall pick in the NHL draft being compared to like Connor, help me out here. What's a good comparison for that? It would be like the number 1 overall pick in the NHL draft being compared to
Connor Brown.
Connor Brown. Yeah, we'll say Connor Brown. Like, it's not a good place to be. It shows the strength of this draft. So back to your original point about finding a running mate. I don't know if they're going to find that in this year's draft for Scotty Barnes. Scotty Barnes is going to need one at some point. Hopefully whoever the Raptors take can come in and fill out the spot nicely and be a good piece and be a good part of that future core and develop into something. But I don't think anyone's coming in as a plug and play option, even on a rebuilding Raptors team.
That is the NBA report, brought to you by Legacy Heating and Cooling. Check them out online at legacyheating.ca. Superman texts in, hey guys, I came across an interesting theory as to why Canadian teams can't win. They don't have enough European players. American teams fill their teams up with more European players, and many hockey analysts think Europeans are more skilled than Canadians. What do you guys think? I don't know if I like Panthers had Barkov, but they also had Sam Bennett, Sam Reinhart, Evan Rodriguez scored a couple goals, Carter Verhaeghe, all Canadian. It Anton Lundell up down on the wings. Matthew Tkachuk's not Canadian, but North American. Lomberg. Tarasenko's European, obviously. On the back end, Ekblad, a guy who was, kind of did a lot of heavy lifting there. Ekman Larson, Forsland. I don't know. I don't buy into that one. The Vegas Golden Knights, weren't they like just built on Western Canadians from the WHL? So,
well, all these teams are built on the Buffalo Sabres in one way or the other with how they
Okposo, another one in there.
Way,
yeah, Sam Reinhart. Yeah, I don't know if I'd buy that one. I just think they're good teams, and there's a lot more American teams, and been a bit of a cold streak for the Canadians. They had a really good run before said cold streak with the Oilers, Canadians, Flames winning cups.
I will say, I do think, generally speaking, Europeans are taught to be more skilled, whereas North Americans are maybe taught to play a little bit more old school hockey, quote unquote. But I don't think that's necessarily the reason they haven't been winning.
No. I feel like talent evaluators can evaluate talent. It doesn't matter where the passport's from. I would hope, but a lot of times you're still going to lean heavy Canadian. Most teams do. Playbook fixes it's Bettman. No Canadian team has won while he's been commish. We'll take a break here. When we come back, more of your texts. We'll wrap things up and get you ready for Turn Sports. It is the Jason Gregor Show here on Sports 1440. Connor Halley, Declan Kruger, Donovan Paulson with you here. The show brought to you by PlayAlberta.ca.
Johns.
Boxing Week pricing is back at the Brick, and that means amazing end-of-the-year sales during summertime. Save up to 40% off mattress.
Sports 1440, as well as the Oilers Nation YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram streams. Thank you for tuning in today. 1-833-401-1440. That is the text line. If you'd like to get in on the conversation, coming to you live from the eWell studio. Jason Gregor Show, always brought to you by PlayAlberta.ca. For a $50 casino free play with a minimum $5 deposit, make sure to use promo code SUMMER, all caps. And tonight it is the Lotto Max draw, $23 million. Canada, right now, at the Copa America, scoring. Jonathan David in the 74th minute. Absolutely beautiful transition. Peru had a corner kick on the Canadian side of things. I think it was a header and two passes. Right to Jonathan David. He goes post and in, 74th minute. Canada leads 1-0, probably as they should. They are up a man, as Peru does have a red card. But that's a good thing for Canada. Text line 1-833-401-1440. Norman Combine says, I would love to hit the Supercross in LA or all access pass to the winter games, X Games. That'd be cool too. I used to love the winter X Games. LA must be Los Angeles, right? Probably not Louisiana. I would assume so. Declan, would you go, hypothetically, you got to go to any college football game? Would it be the SEC?
Yeah. Even though I'm an Oregon fan, well documented, it would be the SEC just because, I hate to say it, but it kind of means more in the South, right? So like if you're going to Death Valley, you're seeing, LSU play, you're going to Tuscaloosa, you're seeing Alabama play, even like you're going to Oxford and you're seeing Ole Miss play. It would be crazy. So yeah, it would definitely be an SEC game. Probably Alabama if I had my pick of the litter.
Yeah, I think that would be pretty awesome. Maybe you could get Bama versus Oregon.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Well, listen, Oregon's in the Big Ten now, so maybe I got to go see an Oregon-Michigan game up at the Big House.
Maybe
like
go to the Horseshoe.
Yeah, could do that too.
Lots of opportunities. 1-833-401-1440. At some point, we did say that the Oilers were 2 goals away from the Cup, says Brendan. Just want to clarify that. We totally understand. Yeah, I mean, we've got through this whole day, and I don't know exactly how the feelings were for you guys on the Lowdown with Low Tide, Declan, but a little bit of frustration still, a little bit of anger, but almost the majority of the texts that we got coming in here from what I saw on Fantasy Frenzy and then the Gregor Show, like kind of just happy for the ride. Like it was a really good trip. Oilers fans wanted to win. Hope, expectations to be right back there again next year. but a lot of appreciation for the Oil after that run.
Yeah, definitely a lot of appreciation. Definitely a lot of appreciation. It was mixed, as you may expect, and like I'm more of in the camp of, yeah, the journey was nice, but I wanted to win. Like I wanted us to win. That's kind of how I come out on it. Obviously, you have to appreciate these things. You never know when it's going to come along again. Now, Jason made this point that it's likely not going to be another 18 years because, Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. History, well, maybe not history, but expectations would be that they'll be back there. But they didn't get there for 9. We never know when they're going to be back again. It's something to consider. You have to appreciate the journey while you're on it. But at the end of the day, you play to win the game. I think that was Herm Edwards. You'd know that very well. You play to win the game. They didn't reach that ultimate goal, and that's the part that stings the most. Of course, you appreciate everything you go through watching the team and that they went through to get there. But yeah, you want to win. You want to win.
You play to win the game. And we let him off the hook. Yeah, that was a good quote. I also got started thinking about Dennis Green, too. They are who we thought they were. Another good quote from NFL head coaches. We were talking about Hall of Fame potential snubs in the NHL with the nominees, the entries being announced today. What about Billy Ranford? 2 cups, a Conn Smythe, Canada Cup MVP, World Championship, and an All-Star game. That's another one that doesn't get tossed out there too much, but a heck of a career. At this point, maybe just seems like it's too late. Like if it hasn't happened yet, probably not going to happen. We also had King of Fort Nasty checking in. Says, afternoon, boys. CH, you say Doughty has game left in him, but you also told me Russ Wilson had game left in when I was complaining about the Broncos after they signed him to that ridiculous contract. LOL. Well, King of Fort Nasty. I mean, last year I think we saw Russ had some game in him. It's the Denver Broncos. That's the problem. Your Broncos are the problem. Remember that. Coming from a Chargers fan. I say that with a smile. Hey, we'll see what Russ does in Pittsburgh. I think Justin Fields is going to be the starting quarterback with the Steelers by midseason. But I'm also more of a Justin Fields fan than I am a Russell Wilson fan. I just find him too corny.
Way too corny.
Can't handle his shtick anymore.
Way too corny.
What's his catchphrase going to be in Pittsburgh?
Let's steal. Let hit the mill. Where he's going to be after half a season with how he's playing.
Hit the mill.
He's going to be in the steel mills. He's going to know what it's like to be a real Pittsburghonian.
I hope so. A Yinzer?
A Yinzer, yeah.
Norman at Combine says, oh yeah, Billy Ranford. Damn, forgot about him. Yeah, he was good. Great hair as well. Mick says, so glad we gave up first for forwards when we needed a goalie and defense. Yeah, I mean, Adam Henrique was good. It's, disappointing. Probably going to lose him in free agency. Would nice to see him stick around. But hey, you got to a Stanley Cup final. It was a pretty good run. I don't know what goalie you were going to get with that first. Maybe you could have got a defenseman. That one I get, but the goalie, I think it would have taken you a whole lot more to bring in anyone else really super strong in that category. We do have the Jays underway right now, taking on the Boston Red Sox once again. Oh, I think I closed my tab. So, Declan, I don't know if you have it up there. We can give an update on the Toronto Blue Jays as they're taking on Boston.
Yeah, we absolutely can do that, Connor. It's 2-0 for the Red Sox in the top of the third.
As I expected. Yeah. Sitting with Brownie today. He's like, maybe they'll win tonight. I said, probably not.
Yeah, you're very realistic of you. I like that. Kiermaier on the mound right now, 0-0 count as far as I can see.
All right. Well, Canada also in action, as we said, still leading 1-0 at Copa America. Peru takes a red card, greatly benefiting the Canadian national squad for us. There were some moves today in the NHL, actually, some management moves outside from the Edmonton Oilers not being involved, some re-signings going on. The Jets keeping DeMello in Winnipeg, a 4-year, $19.6 million deal. You also had the Colorado Avalanche signing Casey Middlestat to a 3-year extension for $17.25. So there's some names that'll be staying with their current squad. Speaking of the Blue Jays, there was a report coming out today that Vlad Guerrero Jr. softened his stance on a possible trade to New York Yankees. That sounds awful to me. I don't know if people really want that to happen. Maybe he does. willing to go to play for the Pinstripes. But yeah, that would be just wrong for me. I don't want to see a trade between two AL East rivals. If we can avoid that, certainly want to try to make that happen. Then John Cooper also being named Canada's head coach for the Four Nations face-off. Declan, you a fan of that one? Because I will just say he's also going to be head coach of the Canadian team for the 2026 Olympics.
Right.
When I get an international tournament, I want best on best. I want all the nations there.
I agree.
This is just kind of a cop-out to me. Like, they're like, we have to do something.
Yep.
You win this one. Well, there's a few other countries that probably a little ticked off. They didn't even get an opportunity to contend.
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit. Like, I want the opportunity for some small nation to go on some miracle run there. And of course, I want all the best players, speaking specifically about one nation. So yeah, no, it's something, and that's nice, and you get to see some of the best in the world compete, but I need that extrapolated a little bit.
Yeah, I think we touched on it yesterday. Like, it's gimmicky what we saw in the past of the young stars, and then also the Team Europe, but also it was kind of cool, like to see McDavid and Matthews. That stuff's fun. 4 teams, with all due respect to the participating countries. I'm sure you're all going to put up a heck of a fight, but I don't know. I guess if you want to represent Canada, you don't say no to Canada at this tournament, because you want to put your best foot forward and have a good performance going into the Olympic Games. But yeah, I don't know. This one just really doesn't do it for me. But we shall see. It's extra hockey, which when it gets going, I'm sure nobody's going to be turning their nose up to. We'll see what happens with that one. Still to come here on Sports 1440 tonight. We do have Turn Sports. They'll be running from 6 till 9. With Nav and Russ. That's a Taco Tuesday, so you don't want to miss that one. We got Fox Sports Radio going from 9 till 7 a.m. And then tomorrow it is the Kevin Karius Show, kicking us off with, what is that, 14 hours straight of sports talk in the city. 14 hours. Kevin Karius, Brandon Douglas, and David Schlemko, former NHLer. But that's going to do it for us here on the Jason Gregor Show. Coming up next, it is Turn Sports. If you missed anything, make sure you go check out our podcasts. Apple, Google, Spotify, wherever you get them from. Give them a download. We'd appreciate that as usual. Great show today. McCarthy, Kevin Karius, Strudwick. We had Spec on the show. Terry Ryan, Zach Lang, and Shawn Brown, former NHLer and former member of the squad here at Sports 1440 Fridays from 3 to 5 here on the Jason Gregor Show. Coming up next, like we said, Turn Sports. Canada, chance to score again here. I want to get it in. Oh, they're not going to score. Peru trailing 1-0. Let's get an update. Final one of the day, brought to you by Booster Juice. Try the cookies and cream booster ball, a yummy little bundle of almond butter, maple syrup, coconut, and gluten-free cookies. Download the Booster Rewards app today or order one in store.
This is a Sports 1440 update.
And one last time from me, your Sports 1440 update. We'll start in the majors. Games on the schedule right now. Yankees trailing the Mets 2-0 in the bottom of the second. Orioles and Guardians in a high-scoring one. That one's at the end of the fourth and is currently 8-6 for the Guardians. Phillies trailing the Mets 4-0. Trailing the Tigers 4-0, in the bottom of the fifth. Mariners and Rays tied at 2-2 in the top of the fifth. Pirates up 5-0 on the Reds in the top of the third. Blue Jays and Sox now tied at 2-2 in the top of the third. Braves and Cardinals tied at 0-0. That one is delayed due to rain in the top of the first. Getting going in about 15 minutes here, we'll see the Rockies and Astros in Houston, Dodgers and White Sox out in Chicago, Marlins and Royals out in KC, and the Rangers and Brewers out in Milwaukee. Euro scores from earlier today, in case you missed it. France and Poland tying 1-1. Netherlands fell to Austria 3-2. Denmark and Serbia, and England and Slovenia both tying 0-0. Copa America sees Peru trailing Canada 1-0 currently in the 88th minute. Chile and Argentina going to be up next at 7 p.m. News in the NHL world is the Avs have signed forward Casey Middlesack to a 3-year, $17.25 million contract extension, and the Jets have signed Dylan DeMello to a 4-year, $19.6 million deal. John Cooper has been named Canada's head coach ahead of the Four Nations face-off and the 2026 Olympics, and the 2024 Hockey Hall of Fame class has been announced. Pavel Datsyuk, Shea Weber, and Jeremy Roenick headlining the class, all in the players division. New York Knicks forward OG Anunoby has opted out of his contract and will be a free agent. And the Edmonton Riverhawks are back in action in about an hour and 10 minutes time here as they take on Bellingham at home. That's going to do it for us here on the Jason Gregor Show with guest host Connor Halley. Turn Sports is up next. Fox Sports Radio by at 9 and Karius and Douglas tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. I'm Declan Kruger, and this has been a Sports 1440 update.
Sports 1440, a Stingray radio